My two entitled friends demand that anytime we go on vacation with anybody else, we are required to invite them as well, or else they would freak out and call us bad friends. And now, after I ignored this stupid rule that they imposed, they're now incredibly pissed off at me, saying that I'm an awful friend for excluding them on purpose. And right now, I honestly feel so lost and I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female and I have a big friend group of around 10 people. We usually get along fine and get together a few times per month. A few years ago, we tried to set up a vacation with all of us, but it didn't work out because no one could find the exact time to go. So we went with 7 people, leaving the other 3 behind. And the other 3 were fine with it and wished us to have fun. Now this vacation was kind of weird because of 2 people specifically. Let's call them Danielle and her boyfriend Marcus. They micromanaged a lot, told us what to do and where to go at all times, which might be because it was Marcus's vacation home and he knew the location well, but even still, it was super annoying. They got mad at me when I didn't like their chicken and called me stupid when I had to leave 2 days earlier than the rest of us because I got an unexpected internship which I really needed for school. Overall, the vacation was moderately fun, but not something that I wanted to repeat. Now, Marcus and Danielle are very controlling in general. At one point, they even checked our locations, saw that we were hanging out with a few people, called us and asked us why we didn't invite them. Then, last year, I came up with the idea of going on vacation with a few people, and I asked in the group chat and I said I could only bring 4 people, and the first 4 who responded went with me. Well, Danielle and Marcus were not part of this vacation and got extremely upset, calling us names and saying we weren't real friends and all this other garbage. Now, we offered to have them come along if they booked an Airbnb nearby, but they only agreed if we split the bill with them. We tried to accommodate and communicated every detail, but the booking got postponed so much that it cost us a lot extra. We're talking almost $200 each. We couldn't find a solution and decided to go without them. Well, they got very mad and said that we cannot go on vacation without including everybody. The other 3 people from the first vacation were also not going, and they were completely okay with it. It was just Danielle and Marcus who were upset. They think that because they invited us the last time, they should join now. They even imposed a rule that if a vacation includes 3 or more people, we have to invite everybody. Well, fast forward to last summer, and I found that rule stupid, and I asked my 4 best friends in this group if they wanted to go with me on vacation. And when they said yes, we started planning. My grandma surprised us for my 21st birthday by purchasing rooms in a beautiful hotel for each of us, so it was quickly decided that we would go. We knew we had to tell Danielle and Marcus somehow, because just going without telling them would make them very upset. Well, we postponed it, and 2 months went by without telling them, making it really awkward. I then finally told them kindly what the plan was, and that it wasn't intended to be rude. Well, this completely backfired. They became extremely upset. When I first told Danielle, she seemed okay with it, but then I received a text from her saying that they were actually extremely mad at me. They were upset that my friends and I didn't communicate and just booked the vacation without them. Now, we somewhat understood, but we just didn't want to go through the whole thing again like last year. And now, a few months later, they have completely cut us off. They told us that we were the worst friends ever, and that we shouldn't treat people this way, and that we needed to behave differently. So right now, I'm really curious to what others think, because maybe I really was a bad friend and I just need some perspective. What should I do? Oh man, these friends sound obnoxious. Seriously, this is taking fear of missing out to a different level. They're basically saying, you can't go on vacation without us. Don't you ever do that again. And it's like, dude, I could do whatever I want. And that really applies to your situation too. If you want to go on vacation without these people, guess what? You can do that. You are well within your right to do whatever you want with your friends, and you do not need to check in with Danielle or Marcus about anything. Like, their behavior is so weird, as if they've got a say over everything that happens in the group itself. Because for me personally, I've got a big friend group, and I do stuff with different people from that group all the time. It's not like you're excluding people, but instead you're just literally going and having fun with a set of people who are available. You still love everybody and you still go on vacations when you can, but it sounds like Danielle and Marcus are the only idiots in the group who are like, no, you've got to invite us too. So yeah, Danielle and Marcus sound incredibly weird, and in my opinion, these are not good friends in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled couple come into our restaurant literally 5 minutes before closing, and now they're demanding that we cook them some food, even though we are literally about to close and our line cooks have all gone home. But thankfully, this is just the moment that our bartender was waiting for, as they finally, for the first time in a while, got to kick them out right there on the spot. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is from the time I spent working in a kitchen. It was a restaurant right next to a music venue, and we got busy on concert weekends, but during the off-season, it could get quiet with just a few regulars. We had music nights, and the bar was usually serving drinks until close, so we would be open all year long. During a quiet quiet late fall day after doing cleaning and checking dates. We had some apples that needed to be used for something before they went bad, so I used the opportunity to work on my pie recipe. Now, we usually don't do pie, so it was a change of pace, and it kept me busy so I would not be forced to scrub some unused corner of the restaurant. The pie was great, and the head chef said it was the best one he had ever tasted. He even took one home to eat. The kitchen closes and we clean everything and break down our stations. We put dates on our stuff and then we throw it in the walk-in. I then get to the point where I could wait out the last 10 minutes at the bar. It is about 5 minutes till closing, and I'm waiting for my ride home. Well, in walks the entitled customers of this story. 2 people for drinks at 10:55 p.m. isn't unusual, but we end up telling them that we are closing soon. They then say to us, "We want food." And at this point, I stand up. I say to them, "I'm sorry, the kitchen is closed, and the line cooks have all gone home. We can't serve you any food." This guy in a leather jacket then sneers at me and says, "I thought this was a restaurant." So I look at him and I say, "Well, we have some apple pie that I made myself. I can serve that to you no charge for some dessert if you really want it. And by the way, I was using my best customer service to try and get the bartender a good tip." Well, the woman in furs replied indignantly, "We want real food right now." Well, my bartender friend says unceremoniously, "Well, then you should probably come in before 10 o'clock. The bar is now closed, so please get out." And my friend said this as they start turning off the lights. I then walk to the kitchen, taking the bartender's cue, and start turning lights off as well. Now, I was in the walk-in when I heard the guy follow me into the now dark kitchen and say, "Seriously?" The bartender then chimes in and says, "No, that's not the door out, and I can't have you in the kitchen. Please leave the way you came in." The bartender then starts printing the end-of-night credit card reports. Now, to someone unfamiliar with the kitchen, it must have looked like I walked through the door and then vanished. Well, the couple stomped out of the bar, and I poked my head out of the fridge to turn off the parking lot lights, letting them go to their cars in complete darkness. Later, when the bartender drove me home, they told me that the couple has only been there maybe a few times, and every time they've never tipped, and they've argued the bill with the owner on more than one occasion. She had always wanted to kick them out, but when they refused free dessert to try and get food an hour after the kitchen had closed, and were so rude about it, she finally had her opportunity. The two of them never came back while I was working there, and the bartender and I ate the pie at her house and had a good laugh about it. Wow, imagine coming in 5 minutes before closing, and not only demanding food from the kitchen, but also following someone like an idiot back to the kitchen and being like, seriously, are you kidding me right now? Like, that is honestly so annoying. So good for that bartender for finally getting the chance to kick them out, because from the sounds of it, they sound like really miserable people to deal with. Am I the jerk for not going on vacation with my friend and her kids, even though me and my other friend who is going on vacation plan to have just a trip away with just the two of us? Because right now, my friend with the kids is saying that this is going to ruin our friendship, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend, who we will call Sarah, is a single mom with 2 kids. She's been going through a rough time after separating from her husband last year, and I've done my best to be there for her. My other close friend, who we will call Lena, me and her have always accommodated Sarah's situation. We would visit her at her house so she wouldn't have to go out, or planning outings around her kids' needs, and just being as flexible as possible. Well, recently, Lena and I decided to go on a vacation together, just the two of us. When Sarah found out, she got very upset and told us that she had expected us to include her and her kids, since we are her closest friends and she doesn't have many people to travel with. She also said that because she's in a difficult situation, she thought this was something we would do for her as her friends. Lena and I explained that while we do love her and her kids, a vacation with them would be completely different from what we have in mind. We also offered to take a shorter trip with her and the kids, like a long weekend, but she dismissed that because she wanted a full week at the beach. She then said that she would have let me join if the roles were reversed, but to me, that's not a fair comparison. If I were tagging along on a vacation with her family, I'd be adapting to their plans, whereas if she came with us, we would have to plan the whole trip around her kids. Sarah has now said that she doesn't know if our friendship will survive this, which I think is an extreme reaction. I understand that she's disappointed, but I don't think it's fair to guilt trip us into changing our plans. She's also acting like we're abandoning her, when in reality, we've been incredibly accommodating for years. I feel bad that she's struggling, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's my responsibility to ensure that she has someone to travel with. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, I really do understand where Sarah's coming from, but no, I don't think you're the jerk. You and Lena have every right to go on whatever vacation you want to. Like seriously, just like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with going on vacation with one other person or a group of people while also excluding someone else. It doesn't mean you don't care about them, and it also doesn't mean that you're trying to, like, I don't know, ruin the friendship. So personally, I think that Sarah's completely overreacting, and I think you're well within your right to do exactly what you want to do. My entitled manager demands my uniform back, basically implying that I no longer work there, while also demanding that I hand deliver it to him when I get the chance. So I decided to get some petty revenge by literally making this process as difficult as possible. hotel, resulting in my former boss being more angry than I've ever seen in my life. Here's what happened. So I used to work in a hotel as a porter. We had to wear white shirts and black pants, and they provided us with a uniform, which was just a nondescript black vest. I worked there part-time, but also had another part-time job at the post office. Now, I told them about the second job before they hired me. They asked me what I would do about conflicting shifts, and I said I would work for whichever company booked my time first. So if the post office said they wanted me next week from Wednesday to Saturday, and then later the hotel asked me to work that time, I'd have to say that I was unavailable. I would also naturally do the same thing if the situations were reversed. Now, I honored that agreement the entire time I worked for them, and it wasn't a problem for over a year. Then, one day I get told by the hotel that I have to work an upcoming weekend. I said I couldn't accept the shift because I had already booked one at my second place of work. My hotel boss then said, well, this is a huge contract, and we have a massive wedding taking place on the same weekend as our large conference, and we need all hands on deck. I then reminded them once again that I couldn't accept a shift if it conflicted with one I had previously booked. Well, my boss then got really annoyed and very pushy. They tried to say, we have to be able to rely on you. But I reminded him that they could rely on me doing exactly what I promised in my interview, and that they had been able to rely on me for over a year. I also pointed out that it's not reasonable to demand that I work a shift that I hadn't agreed to work. And you know what? My boss was still pissed off when I hung up. Now, they didn't fire me, but over the next month, I couldn't help but notice I never got any shift offers, and it became obvious I was being fired, but without actually being told that I was fired. I called several times and I asked if there were any shifts, but I was always told, we have nothing for you at this time. And they said this in a really cold and nasty tone. Well, I checked with my friends who worked at the hotel, and they all said that business was normal, and they could see no reason why I wasn't being offered any shift. But you know what? It's honestly no worries. I just picked up more shifts at the post office, and they paid almost twice as much, so that's cool by me. Another couple of weeks go by, and my direct supervisor at the hotel called me to ask for my uniform and vest back. Now, I asked why, saying that I had not been fired, so as far as I know, I still work there. But my boss just sidestepped my question and refused to answer, and refused to admit that I had been fired. He just kept saying, we need that uniform and you have to give it back. I said to him, no problem. He then starts saying, you can drop it off anytime. And I interrupt him by saying, no, I won't be dropping it off. He stopped for a moment flustered and then said, but you have to, it's part of your employment contract. I replied by saying, yes, I know. I read the contract and it merely states that I have to return the uniform when requested. It doesn't say I have to deliver it to you, so I won't be doing that. You can send someone to pick it up at a time that is convenient to me. And also for reference, the hotel was in a different city from my hometown, so it was about a 45-minute drive to my place. Well, my now ex-boss tried to bully me, but it's funny how losing his ability to deny me work had somehow shifted our power balance. He then sputtered and stammered as he tried to figure out some way to goad or coerce me into driving the vest to him, but finally he gave up. He then said to me that he would send someone, but he said to me that he would send it sometime and that I need to be ready for whenever that is. But again, I told him no, that he would have to contact me to prearrange a time that was convenient. I said I checked my calendar and that he could call me back in a couple of days to make arrangements. And sure, I know it's really petty, but hearing the annoyance and anger in his tone as we spoke was very, very enjoyable. At the end of the day, he never did send anyone to pick up the vest, so I ended up using it as part of a Halloween costume. Man, I can't stand managers who act like this, who literally bring you on board and they're like, oh, we understand you have a second job, and then they try to be like, okay, your other job doesn't matter. You need to work for us right now. We need all hands on deck. It's like, nope, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. I've got other arrangements and we already agreed upon this when I got hired. And I'm sure there's some like legal reason why he wasn't like, okay, you're fired, and was instead demanding that you hand over the uniform, basically implying that you're fired without actually saying it. So yeah, good riddance to that idiot, because that guy clearly is an awful manager. And I know for a fact that I would hate having to work for someone like that. An entitled old customer screamed in my face one too many times. So I decided to get some petty revenge by hiding his favorite food in a way that he would never find it. Here's what happened. Okay, so when I was a university student, I worked in a little supermarket for over a year. I was 19 years old at the time, and since the United Kingdom minimum wages are age-based, I was making very, very little money. We had a really complicated machine for printing and cashing lottery tickets, and any corrections and refunds had to be signed off by the manager, who, by the way, was never around when we needed him. Cashing one ticket alone took something like 15 steps. I mean, it was wild. So for the first few weeks, I was quite slow at it in order to avoid making any mistakes. Well, on my second day there, an old guy turned up, and in addition to some food, he wanted a few lottery tickets. He didn't seem to appreciate my lack of speed, and he leaned in to about 8 inches away from my face, and he screamed at me, yes, which is when I tried to check if the numbers I was about to print off were correct. In retrospect, it really wasn't that big of a deal, but I was young and very small, so his screaming and towering over me was enough to make me feel upset and afraid. He looked very pleased with himself for making this young girl earning a few pounds an hour tremble with fear. I already had a bit of retail experience under my belt from a prior job, but on that day, I cried in the employee bathrooms for the very first time. The job was not great, so I was brought to tears by customers a few more times during my time there. But I was broke and a fast learner, so I was always available for overtime. I ended up working about 55 hours a week, and the guy turned out to be a regular, which meant that he had absolutely known that I was new, and I got to serve him often over the next year or so. I also got the hang of things and did pretty much everything else there, from training others to keeping the refrigerator's temperatures log, ordering stock, logging and clearing waste, as well as reducing items which had reached their sell-by date. Well, one benefit was that I learned a few things about this idiot who had screamed at me, like how he was nasty to everybody who worked there, especially the younger ladies, how he was retired and seemingly not very well off, and how he appeared to keep track of food sell-by dates and would consistently turn up soon after certain meat-based items had been reduced for the final time. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being old or on a budget, but it's always a bad idea to scream at people just because you're having a bad day and they're not allowed to defend themselves, especially the ones who handle your food. The other benefit was that because I was working there full-time, I was the one serving him 99% of the time, which gave me ample opportunities to deliver my petty revenge. And it was going to be a slow burn, just like cooking a frog, as they say. Being a broke university student, I figured that I could both stick it to him and save myself a bit of money, since food price reduction stacked with my employee discount. Now, he never screamed at me again, but for 10 months, I hid all of his nearly expired favorites behind the dairy items, and purchased them for myself once he'd left in a huff after finding them gone. I didn't even care for sausages that much, but I regularly ate something called toad in a hole out of sheer spite, and that vile jerk probably managed to buy reduced sausages maybe 5 times in 10 months. He then got visibly more and more upset over time because other shoppers had seemingly caught on to his strategy. I always nodded sympathetically. Sorry, we've sold out the last ones. Maybe try again later in the week. But you know what? I actually rather like the toad in the hole now, and I now have it as a special revenge treat. So the moral of the story is don't scream at the people who handle your food, because then you might just miss out on something that you really want. Okay, if anybody got 8 inches away from my face and screamed at me in the way that the original poster is describing, then in my opinion, the gloves are off regardless of what that job is. I don't care the circumstances, I don't care what's going on, I don't care what manager's breathing down my neck, that is so inappropriate. So sure, I totally understand where the original poster's coming from, where they were young and they just didn't know what to do, but my god, if that was me nowadays, I would absolutely say something back. Like, this guy's got such an awful attitude, I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. And you know what, he probably was some sexist weirdo who clearly was only going after and like giving younger ladies a harder time. So honestly, I love the way you handled this. You literally took away one of the few reasons he came into this store, and you slowly made his life just a little bit more miserable overall, all because he decided to scream in your face. Because this guy deserves to get put in his place, especially by the way that he talked to everybody in that store. An entitled jerk tried to scam me while I was abroad in Rome, Italy. So I decided to get some petty revenge by throwing his scam product off a bridge in a location that would be really hard for him to retrieve it. Here's what happened. When I was in Rome, we had read about these scams that people do, one of which is trying to give you free stuff, but then guilt trip you into giving something back to them, usually money, in return. At one point, this happened, and my whole group fell for it, despite the fact that I had informed them about this. But you know what? I declined to take a bracelet. Basically, this guy comes up and asks where I'm from, and when you tell him, he makes some stupid connection between there and where he is from, and claims that you two are family. And then he offers to give you something from his family, and then ties these bracelets on your arm, which are really hard to get off. Then he asks if you have anything for his family, holding out his hand expecting something. So in this instance, my son proceeds to hand the man $20. And this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, it is what it is. He was fine with it, and this wasn't the issue. This was just me having seen this scam in process, and now I was aware of how it worked in more detail. Also, we found these same identical bracelets at a small shop like 10 minutes later for maybe 30 cents. Well, this is where the petty part of my story comes into play. The next day, I'm by myself walking by the Coliseum, and one of these guys asked me where I'm from. Knowing that he's going to try and make a connection, I say that I'm from the moon. Well, when I said that, he was really caught off guard, but he continues his pitch anyways. I tell him I'm not interested, but he just stays on me and keeps nagging me. So finally I stop and I'm like, what is it? And he says to me, I want to give you something from my family to yours, bro. That's it. And I say to him, okay, it's for free, right? And he literally confirms by saying, yes, this is for free from my family to yours. And so at this point, I'm feeling really petty because this guy's been bothering me non-stop. drop. So I take the bracelet and I say thank you, and I immediately turn and abruptly start walking. He then dashes to catch up with me and says to me, "Yo bro, you got anything for my family?" I say to him, "No man, sorry," and I just continue walking. He then grabs me by the shoulder and looks me dead in the eye and says, "Give it back." And I'm like, "What?" But he says it again more sternly, "Give it back." The sales pitch nice guy voice is no more. So I was like, "Oh, this bracelet?" Which at this point I was holding and not wearing, and at this point he holds out his hand expecting me to hand it over. I just look at him and I say, "No, this is mine, you gave it to me." He says, "No, it's not free." I then reminded him that he specifically said, "Oh, it's free from his family." He then tries to cut me off as I'm going to cross the street. He then starts swearing at me. So I take his bracelet and I huck it down a 20-foot drop onto the ground level of an area outside the Coliseum. And sure, he could still go get it, but he would have to walk all the way around the ramp and far away from me. He then starts swearing at me over and over again. He then looks like he's gonna spit on me, and I tell him that's a very bad idea. So finally, he turns and walks away. And I honestly love the fact that I ruined this guy's day even just a little bit. Yeah, I can't stand people who panhandle or like try to scam people out of money like this, because this scam is so annoying. You're literally just on vacation and you're trying to enjoy yourself, but these scammers are trying to get as much money out of you as possible. So truly, I love the way you handled this, because this guy absolutely had it coming. My entitled parents make excuses and allow my little brother to constantly steal from me all the time. And when I confronted them about this, they always made excuses for his behavior and ended up yelling at me for everything that my brother was doing. Eventually, my aunt got involved and helped me out in this situation and put her foot down and said enough is enough. Here's what happened. Back when I was still a kid, it was very hard for anything to be exclusively mine. And as my brother got older, he craved money for things above all else. He and I both got allowances. In fact, we got equal allowances. So that was sort of fair. I say sorta because he didn't have to do chores for his, while I did. But that's in the past now, because my brother is now having to do all those chores for nothing. My brother always wanted more money though, whether he spent it or not. He loved having new things, but sometimes he just saved the money instead, which is odd because you'd think him the kind of kid who'd splurge his saving on the first thing he wants. My brother and I both got allowances of about $25 a month, and I was pretty thankful for it. I usually saved most of my money though, but my brother always wanted more. One day as a teenager, I came home to find my room had been ransacked, and the only thing gone was my money. I'd hidden it to try and keep it from my brother because, well, the obvious reason being that my brother would take it. I thought I had hidden it well, but he found it anyways. My mom was home when he did it too, and she acted like she didn't even notice, but there's no way she could not have heard him tearing my room up. In fact, I called her out on that during the intervention, and she just cried and made excuses about my brother being special. That is, until my other family members chimed in and told her to fess up. My room was on the first floor right near the living room. My door was completely in view of the couch, and when I pointed this out back then, my mom just made the excuse again that he's special and he's not like you. It was all just a big excuse for my brother. I said I wanted the money back, and my mom just kept making more excuses. My dad was also no help either, because when he got home, he was also making excuses. But thankfully, eventually I did get that money back, because I refused to let it go. I heard my brother screaming as they took the money out of his piggy bank and gave it back to me, and they had the most disappointed looks on their faces, like I had just robbed my brother, even though he robbed me. And they couldn't even tell me off because I wasn't in the wrong, and they knew it. I don't imagine many kids getting in the kind of situations I've been in, where they are more right about something than their parents are very often. And just when I thought things would get better, a few months later the whole situation repeated. My brother ransacked my room again and stole the money I had hidden again. That time my parents didn't want to do anything about it, and basically said that they couldn't bear to see my brother so disappointed from taking his money. I felt like I was losing my mind. I kindly reminded them that stolen money wasn't his money, and it was really crappy that they are just sitting back and letting that happen. And after I said that, my dad yelled at me and told me to go to my room. So the next day I rode my bike to my aunt's house and told her everything, and she came back home with me and asked my parents if they really let my brother steal from me and did nothing about it. My mom just started whining that my brother has special needs and she didn't want to make him cry again, and my dad backed her up. My aunt just gave them both the narrow-eyed look and reminded them that they have two sons, and my feelings matter too, and what they are doing was very wrong, and it meant that my brother would never respect boundaries and would think he can always get away with stealing when he gets older. My aunt asked asked me openly how much my brother took. I stated the number, which at the time was everything I had, save for a few bucks in my wallet. My aunt gave my parents an expectant glare. My parents tried making a few more excuses, but my aunt had a counter for each one of them. Finally, my parents went into my brother's room, and a moment later, my brother was screaming at the top of his lungs. My parents then came back with all of the money my brother had taken, and practically threw it at me for making my brother cry. My aunt then told them off for acting that way when I've done nothing wrong. They then begrudgingly picked up all of my money that they had thrown at me and gave me a pretty forced apology. My aunt said that she'd be severely disappointed in them if they let this situation repeat. And before she left, my aunt offered for me to hide my money at her house in a lockbox that she had. I took her up on that and started keeping my savings over there. My brother ended up ransacking my room 2 more times looking for money, but I was keeping every cent I had in my aunt's house. My parents actually asked me where I had hidden it, and I refused to tell them. I simply could not believe they were doing this. Then I asked why they wanted to know so badly anyway, and my dad instantly got defensive about it. My mom calmed him down and they didn't ask again. Since he couldn't find my money in my room, my brother figured I must have hidden it somewhere else. So he started tearing the house apart, one room at a time. And who did they force to clean up that mess? Why, yours truly, of course. My parents then started to blame me for the entire situation. But when I asked how it was my fault for not letting my brother steal from me, their only counter was that my brother had special needs. I swear, they used that line with me 1,000 times over. That was something else I heavily berated my parents for in the family intervention. The final straw came when my brother ransacked my parents' bedroom. My parents had a small suitcase safe that they kept some cash in, and my brother locked himself in their room, took the entire safe, and started bashing it around on stuff to try and get it open, all because he couldn't find the keys. By the time my parents were able to get the door open by breaking it open, my brother had destroyed the room, and he never got that safe open. He just sat on the floor clutching it and crying about the money inside. My dad was so angry that he turned red, and then to my utter surprise, he actually started yelling at my brother and grounded him, which really was a very rare sight for me to see back then. Then my parents forced my brother to help clean up the mess. After that, my brother never ransacked mine or my parents' rooms ever again looking for money, but he would still go rooting around every time he got an idea where my savings might be. So I started acting like I was giving hints by repeatedly going into certain places, all while he was watching. He ransacked the backyard shed, dug a bunch of holes in the yard and under the back porch, and even ransacked the attic. My parents really hit their breaking point with the attic and grounded my brother again. My parents did eventually figure out I was keeping my money at my aunt's house, and they didn't argue with my reasoning for doing it, but either my brother overheard or one of them spilled the beans to him, because the next time we visited my aunt, my brother tried to hunt for the money, but my aunt yelled at him to stop, and my brother would just sit on the floor and cry. This happened a few more times, and my aunt bluntly stated that she would press charges for any damages if my brother ransacked anything, and also kept a digital camera on hand to record anything if need be. My parents heavily scolded my brother to stop looking for my money. It wasn't his, and he can't have it, which only brought on more screaming and crying that he wants it like a 3-year-old. Eventually, my brother said he didn't want to go to my aunt's house anymore, so my parents visited less. My aunt visited us a lot more than we visited her anyways. I was pretty much able to keep my money away from my brother till after I moved out, and he has never managed to steal cash from me ever again. What a terrible situation to be stuck in. If your brother really is special needs, then your parents need to absolutely help him understand that stealing is not okay, because allowing this type of behavior to develop at an early age is only going to damage him in the future. It is absolutely no excuse for your parents to use the excuse that your brother's special needs just to excuse his stealing. I mean, after the first 2 times, you would think that they would actually step up to the plate and be good parents, but they just brushed it off and said, "Oh no, it's your fault." Which, by the way, how on earth would it be your fault? You're just trying to save your money, but your parents are enabling your brother to just steal from them. And ironically enough, it's only when your brother tried to ransack your parents' room to break open that safe that they actually put their foot down and said no more. They clearly needed a taste of their own medicine to get things going, which honestly is not what it should have taken. So good for you for being able to save your money from your brother and for getting out of that house. That must have been miserable to deal with, and I'm sure it's a relief to no longer have to keep your your money at your aunt's house any longer. My ex is blaming me for everything, even though she was overly controlling the entirety of our relationship, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. So my ex and I got in a little argument the other day. It really wasn't anything serious, but we both kind of took it too far, and it got out of hand. Pretty much what happened was the night before the argument, I was playing Xbox with my brother. I decided to have a couple of beers while we were playing, because why not? I didn't feel the need to tell her this, because it was just at home, and it wasn't like I was trying to get drunk or going out or anything. Either way, she was asleep and lives across the country from me, and we already said goodnight. She ends up waking up in the middle of the night and texts me that her dog woke her up and she couldn't fall back asleep. We were texting like normal, and I told her I was just playing Xbox with my brother and having a couple of beers. She replies with, "What? You didn't tell me you were drinking." I told her it was casual and we were just playing video games and that I had only had 3 beers over the span of 3 hours or so. She replies with, "That's a lot of drinking. Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, "My bad, I didn't really think to text you about it. I'm just chilling at home. If I was going out or actually getting drunk, it would be a different story." Anyway, it kind of hurt me and I felt low-key attacked, as well as interrogated over nothing, but I just kind of ignored it. The next morning, I brought it up and said, "I don't really like how you came at me last night. I was just enjoying a few drinks with my brother. I don't know why you had to come at me and ask why I didn't say anything and tell me that I drank a lot when I really didn't." She replied with a facepalm emoji. Things kind of escalated from there, and I started getting sarcastic after she said, "Don't give me that. You're starting a fight for no reason." She was mad at me for being sarcastic and thought I was immature. To be honest, I guess I overreacted and took it too far, but either way, I was fed up with her being controlling. There have been multiple times in our relationship where she expects me to drop everything for her, inform her about every little thing, and it all just takes away from my own free time. But I still don't think her interrogating me over 3 beers while she is asleep across the country is okay behavior. Anyway, we both dropped it and moved on with our day. We were texting normally and everything seemed fine. Maybe it was just a small miscommunication, right? Well, the next day, I decided to be a good person and apologize for being over the top, and I just said I'm sorry for what happened, as well as for my part in the argument. Mind you, this is after we had stopped fighting and were talking normally again. But I guess apologizing wasn't the right thing to do, because she replies with, "I need time to think. I said okay, I will give you space. Let me know when you want to talk." So she finally contacts me today after leaving me in silence for 5 days. And guess what? She breaks up with me. She puts all the blame on me and says that I was hiding it from her and that I am rude and need help. Like, what in the blue moon is going on? She said that everything I've done has brought her to the breaking point. As a side note, I have been to therapy for my issues, which stem from ADHD and anxiety, and I have drastically improved myself. I used to be a very angry person, and in the past really hurt her. However, these things occurred so long ago, but she is using these incidents as her main reasoning. It's almost like she uses these things against me when I went to therapy and did everything to correct myself. Now one slip up, which was just too far for her, and she just dumps me out of nowhere. She claims that my rude behavior is due to the fact that I am not in therapy currently, because I just graduated college and I cannot afford it. I have explained to her countless times that I am working on getting a job as well as insurance so that I can get therapy again. How can I go to therapy when I can't afford it? And how is this my fault when she is the one being controlling? What should I do? I definitely have to side with the OP on this one. The way the girlfriend's acting over something so minor is really ridiculous. And from the sounds of it, this guy's anger issues are from a really long time ago. It's really not fair to pin this on somebody when they've tried to improve themselves, and from the sounds of it, have made some very serious efforts to be better. That's really immature of her to do, and it does not make her a good partner in my opinion. If anything, it kind of sounds like she wanted to break up with him, and she was waiting for that one thing to have as an excuse to then dump all this other garbage on him that had already been resolved up to this point. It's really gross behavior, and this guy does not need this type of jerk in his life. So honestly, I'm kind of happy that this guy got out of this relationship, because who wants to really be in a relationship with someone who's going to sling mud at you all the time based on your own mistakes in the past, especially when you've tried to do better and be a better person overall. He does not need that, and he can find someone who's going to treat him with respect and be a lot better than this terrible ex-girlfriend. My mother-in-law is very overbearing and keeps trying to feed me meat, and I don't know what to do. I have been with my husband for 6 years, and we're married for 3, and expecting a baby boy in just a few weeks. I met his mother early in our relationship, and initially really liked her since she was fun to be around and we had a lot in common. I've been a strict vegetarian since I was about 10 years old by choice. When I first met his parents and we would go to restaurants, it was just small things like asking if I was sure I wanted what I ordered, as well as offering to split their meal and dishes with me, or waving their chicken or steak in front of me and saying things like, "Doesn't it smell good?" I thought they were just trying to be nice, if anything just a little bit clueless, but I ignored it because I get that kind of thing all the time. After my husband and I got engaged and then married, we started spending more time at his parents' house, as they only lived a few streets away, and I was excited since I've never had a traditional family and I've always wanted to be a part of it. We would go for dinner a lot, and every single time it would be something with meat in it. Despite my mother-in-law knowing that I can't eat meat, I would usually just eat whatever the sides were and leave the meat alone. That is, until she started frying things in goose fat as well as adding bacon to veggies, saying it gave it a better flavor. My husband told her every single time that it was cruel leaving me with nothing to eat, and she would always apologize, saying she didn't know I couldn't have it. I figured maybe she just didn't know how to make vegetarian food somehow, and so I offered to bring my own dish to family dinners, but she insisted it was too much trouble for me to do that and that she wanted to treat us. I started to believe maybe she was either clueless or just stupid, and I eventually refused to eat anything she cooked. Whenever we ate with his parents from then on, we either went to a restaurant or they came to our house. I was always nice to her, even when I was angry, and she was always nice to me and didn't think it was worth arguing over. But once the pregnancy came along, it made me start rethinking my relationship with her. As soon as she found out I was pregnant, she was all over me, and at first I was actually looking forward to spending more time with her. I don't have a mother, so being one myself was bittersweet, since I had nobody to go for advice or support, so I was excited to have my mother-in-law involved. I had very bad morning sickness for the first 4 months, and she was great with taking care of the house and making sure that I was okay. There were very few things I could stomach, so she didn't try cooking for me, but insisted on bringing me toast and fruit and tea, and I was very grateful, as on my bad days I couldn't even get out of bed. After my nausea eased, the problem started again. She's been staying over for days at a time, and while she isn't being annoying, she's just wanting to clean the house and help us prepare, essentially for what feels like an 800-week pregnancy, and it's just making me uncomfortable, and I really want my space. She's generally very on top of me, and I know she's just excited to have her first grandchild, but she probably asks me, "How's the little man?" as well as, "When do I get to meet my little baby?" about 100 times a day. Some things even feel a little creepy though, like always asking me if he's moving or kicking, as well as putting her hands on and rubbing and kissing my belly constantly. One time I was in a really bad mood, and as soon as she touched my bump, I slapped her hand away and she cried and I felt a little terrible. Throughout all of this, I've only blown up on her twice. The first was when she commented on my size, not in a nasty way, just in the way that you do to pregnant people. Since I was first showing, whenever she saw me, she would drop a little joke, saying something like, "I bet nothing fits you anymore." Or she would also say, "I swear, you get a little bigger every time I look at you." It felt creepy and invasive, and I've always had body issues, so I didn't like what she said. Now that I'm almost full term, it's just been the usual. "You're ready to pop." I get stuff like that from her all the time. But a few days ago, she said, "You look like you were ready to have that baby yesterday. How do you even have any room for him anymore? You're huge." And after she said that, I exploded. I said something like, "I know, you don't have to tell me. I'm aware. Please leave me alone." I felt horrible after that because I did upset her, and she didn't talk to me for a few days because of it. The second time I blew up at her was when the meat thing started again, which feels like such a small part of it, but it was the last straw that broke me. While she was staying over, she started cooking for me and my husband, and guess what? It was always meat. I told her it was fine and that one of us would cook, but she insisted that she wasn't going to make a pregnant woman slave away in the kitchen, as if I don't cook for myself almost every day when she's not here. My husband, who has been 100% on my side throughout all of this, sat down and told her she absolutely cannot do that anymore, and she apologized, and actually promised she wouldn't cook meat anymore and would make vegetarian food when she insisted on cooking. I thought that if she wouldn't listen to me, she would at least listen to her son. The other day, my husband was out from the morning until the afternoon, and my mother-in-law offered to cook me lunch. She made me vegetarian meatballs in thick, flavorful sauce, and I was honestly impressed. Shortly after eating, I started feeling incredibly nauseous and threw up, which was odd since I haven't had morning sickness or any other nausea in months. When my husband got home, I told him I I was worried that his mom had done something to the meatballs and that I thought I was going crazy, thinking she was trying to poison me or trying to force meat on me once again. My husband confronted his mom, and eventually she admitted that they weren't veggie meatballs, but they were pork, which I haven't eaten in almost 20 years, so my body immediately rejected it. We threw her out of the house, and she hasn't stopped trying to come over or to try and contact us, begging me to forgive her. I don't know what to do anymore. She's been so nice to me as long as I've known her, and my husband is extremely close to her. I don't want to force him to cut contact with his own mother or stop her from seeing her first grandchild over something so small. I don't have any allergies or health issues, but my son might, and she could ignore them and make him eat something that could badly hurt him. I feel so stupid and paranoid, but I just don't know if I can trust her around me or my baby. What should I do? This is actually a lot more serious than people may realize. For someone who's strictly vegan or vegetarian, any kind of meat can make them violently ill. This is a very specific dietary restriction, so your body can react very poorly if any type of meat is in their food. What this mother-in-law is doing is absolutely disgusting and incredibly disrespectful. She is blatantly at this point disrespecting this lady's boundaries and ignoring the fact that she is a vegetarian. She literally cannot stomach having meat in her system. Her body, after 20 plus years, is not used to it. Like, that's ridiculous. I can't believe this person is not understanding of that situation. In my opinion, I think it's time to set a very serious boundary and not allow this woman to come back to your house. She is clearly not getting the picture or being woefully ignorant to your dietary restrictions. She is blatantly ignoring it and cooking whatever she wants just to try and get you to eat meat, which is genuinely not fair, and in my opinion is more akin to food poisoning than anything else. So I think kicking her out and saying, no, you cannot come over to my house, will send a very clear consequence to this lady. When you set up boundaries and someone doesn't accept those boundaries and then gets upset because you reject them, that's what we like to call consequences, and she needs to own up to the consequences of her decisions. And she knows for a fact that you can't eat meat, but she's ignoring it anyways. So kick her to the curb and say, nope, you're not allowed in my house anymore, because otherwise this will continue and she won't get the message, and who knows what she would try next. An entitled Karen demands that my deaf employee apologize to her, all because she said they were ignoring her. And when I tried to explain that this employee was deaf, she demanded proof and refused to believe me. Things got so bad that I had to kick this entitled Karen out. Here's what happened. For reference, I've spent 15 years of my life being a restaurant general manager. I've got some crazy stories, and this one certainly takes the cake. It was Mother's Day, and it was one of the busiest days at my restaurant. We had quick service, self-seating, and casual dining. An entitled Karen already ordered, had her buzzer, and was waiting for a table to open. She sees another family get up and immediately runs to the dirty table to reserve it. No big deal, right? It just needs to get cleaned up, and then they can happily sit there if they want. This entitled Karen sees my deaf employee and begins yelling at her from behind. So to this Karen, the deaf employee just simply doesn't do anything at all. She continues to follow them and berate them around. Now, I understand that there is no sign saying my employee was deaf, but I believe that a normal person would realize that something was off after getting no acknowledgement at all. I noticed something was going on and walked over to the already irate entitled Karen and asked if I could help. She then goes off on me about how my deaf employee was ignoring her request to clean off the table and help her family sit down. I apologized to this entitled Karen and explained that my employee didn't respond to her shouts because she is deaf and genuinely had no idea anyone was trying to communicate with her. I signaled one of my bussers to come clear the table while I continued to speak with this Karen. This is when the entitled Karen accused me of lying about my deaf employee. She demanded to know why I would hire someone who couldn't respond to her shouts and demands. And at this point, I was getting very annoyed. I explained that I didn't need to justify any of my hiring decisions and that I 100% stood by my team. The entitled Karen demanded that I fire this employee. She said that there is no use for a deaf person to work in a restaurant, and this had me fuming. At this point, her table had been bussed, her kids were sitting down looking quite embarrassed, and her buzzer was going off, informing her that her food was ready for pickup at the counter. To me, there was no reason to continue with this entitled Karen, especially on such a busy day. I asked her if she needed any help picking up her food, and if not, I wished her a good meal and excused myself. But the entitled Karen was not done with my team. She again saw the deaf employee restocking some items and decided to prove to me that I was wrong. She approached this employee and again began berating her using very offensive language. When the deaf employee turned to face this entitled Karen and realized that she was being yelled at, she looked very frightened and very confused. I never allow my employees to be harassed, and this was especially evil. I immediately had my expo counterpack the woman's order to go. I handed it to her and I said, "You need to get out now." This entitled Karen swore at me up and down and told me she was going to contact corporate and have me as well as my deaf employee fired. Yeah, okay, like I've never heard that before. I escorted the entitled Karen and her poor children to the door and told her she was not welcome back in my restaurant. After that situation, the deaf employee was crying and so confused. I sat with her in my office and explained that this had nothing to do with her and she was a fantastic employee, which is honestly true. She had worked for me for over 5 years and was the first deaf employee to be a certified trainer for her position in the entire company. I simply cannot believe that someone would be so mean to someone who is so nice, and I never let anyone talk to her like that ever again. That entitled Karen is so unbelievably evil. I think the original poster put it best. To berate and harass and attack somebody all because they're deaf is so disgusting. And the fact that she said there's no use for them, what kind of discriminatory mindset is that? That is so horrible. It's moments like that you wish you had somebody recording her reactions and how she was acting so that it can be posted online and people can see it, because behavior like that is just unacceptable. And I'm so glad that this general manager of this restaurant stood up for their employees and said, "No, you are not talking to them like that." Thankfully, that lady's never welcome back at that restaurant ever again, and hopefully this deaf employee never has to deal with that ever again. I just found out I wasn't invited to a coworker's party because his wife doesn't like me, and I really don't know what to do. A coworker threw a party at his house over the weekend, and I found out from other coworkers who were invited. We will call my coworker John. That's not his real name. John and I have started working together earlier this year when he joined our department. We aren't on the same team, but often we'll hang out at lunch or at the bar after hours with everyone else involved. We aren't super close, but we are pretty friendly, at least on the same level as others who were invited to the party. Yesterday, a coworker I am close with pulled me aside and told me she felt bad, but she, as well as others, were invited to John's house over the weekend for a small party. It wasn't coworkers only, and John and his wife's friends from outside of work were the majority. I was a bit hurt I wasn't invited and asked if she knew why, as well as if I had done something to upset John. She told me that it was the general consensus that John's wife didn't like me hanging around him at work or happy hour, and that I apparently gave her homewrecker vibes. She overheard the wife telling her friends this at the party in a different room from the main area and was eavesdropping just a little bit. The wife said it was weird that I follow him on Instagram and like all of his posts when he doesn't follow me back. I was mortified by this. I follow other coworkers too, and they follow me back. Her friend apparently then asked if the wife was worried that I would see photos of the party, to which his wife responded, "I can't have a party in my own house with my husband without inviting her, as if she doesn't spend enough time with him every lunch or happy hour. Maybe now she will get the hint and just go away." Also, as an important note, I don't have any feelings for John beyond work friendliness, but now I feel like I've done something wrong, and I'm being made out to be this office hussy. I unfollowed him from social media after my coworker told me this, and got lunch with some other people yesterday. I still said hi and such when I saw him, and we were both very polite. He didn't mention the party, and I didn't mention what I was told. I just can't figure out what it was that ticked off his wife. We don't hang out one-on-one, and it's always with other coworkers, both male and female. I don't understand why I'm being singled out specifically. I just want my work environment to be a friendly one, and this sort of situation is causing me to feel stressed and hypervigilant of my interactions at work now. It seems like there's some undercurrent in our department now where people noticed I wasn't invited and are now making silent assumptions, like they think I did something improper involving John. I walked into our snack lounge, and 3 of the women who were there stopped talking abruptly and just gave me really forced greetings. What should I do to diffuse this situation? My natural instinct is to talk to John, but I feel that this would get back to his wife and cause more drama. A close friend of mine suggested I just disentangle myself from him completely and only interact with him on work-related things. I just want to avoid any more drama, and I'm just not sure what to do. This is definitely a weird situation because it looks like this wife definitely has it out for you. She clearly does not like you being around around her husband. And I don't think it's anything you've done specifically. She probably views you as some kind of threat, even though you've never done anything to insinuate that you're interested in John, but she's gonna go out of her way to be incredibly toxic and treat you like garbage. If I was in your situation, I would just act normal. If people want to talk garbage, let them talk garbage. I could care less what they think of me. I'll be professional, I'll be polite, but the days of me being super duper friendly with anybody at that office would definitely be numbered. At this point, you know people's true colors, and if their first instinct is to say, oh man, such and such must have done something wrong. Otherwise, why wouldn't she be invited to this party? I mean, if they're saying that, then guess what? You don't want to be friends with them at all, because you can guarantee that when you're not around, they're talking garbage about you. So if anything, let them talk. Who cares? And as for John and his wife, I feel bad for John. Sounds like he has a very toxic wife who clearly has it out for you. And I think your friend is right. Distance yourself from John. You don't need that. Sure, you've been friendly in the past and you followed him on Instagram and stuff, but it's time to step away and spend time with other people, because you don't need this kind of energy in your life. And I honestly think that your coworker only told you this to try and stir the pot. I really don't think she said this to try and help you out in any way. I mean, she even said it herself. She was eavesdropping. She was snooping on somebody's private conversation. I mean, is this really somebody you want to take good advice from, as well as any kind of credible insight? I personally would not. So I would just keep your head down and socialize with others, but keep doing your own thing. Office gossip will always move to somebody else, and pretty soon they'll have another target, and you can just move forward and get your work done. Because at the end of the day, you didn't do anything wrong, and no amount of backbiting from this guy's wife is going to change that. My brother acts incredibly weird towards my girlfriend, and things got so bad that I chose to move out and live with her instead of my family. Now my family refuses to talk to me, and they're giving me the cold shoulder, and I'm not sure what to do. First, let me provide some context. My older brother is 32 years old, and he's never had a job, and he dropped out of community college after 2 semesters for never doing his assignments. He's lived with my parents his entire life, and he sleeps all day and just stays up all night playing video games. Both my brother and I are diagnosed as autistic and present our symptoms similarly, but I've been working since I was 17 and got my driver's license at 17, as well as bought my first car at 24, as well as started college in 2019. My parents constantly use my brother's autism as an excuse for his appalling behavior, even though we're both on the spectrum. In November 2020, I moved back in with my parents because I left an abusive relationship and had chronic health issues. I met my current girlfriend in mid-2021, and in early 2022, she had some extenuating circumstances where my family agreed to let her live with us. My brother was immediately pleased with this development, but just as quickly behaved inappropriately. It started off with him creepily staring anytime my girlfriend and I kissed, and it progressed to him following my girlfriend into the bathroom anytime he saw her go in there for a shower. That is, until he figured out that she always locked the door because of him. And the straw that broke the camel's back was him trying to come into our bedroom uninvited and without knocking at 3 in the morning while we slept. Every time he behaved inappropriately, we mentioned it to my parents, but all that really happened were excuses made for him, basically stating that because he's autistic, his situation is somehow special, and that they will have a brief conversation with him about not doing those things again, only to then have him still do whatever he wanted. Anyway, after the bathroom incident, they kicked my girlfriend out, making her homeless for a brief period of time. As a result of this, my girlfriend and I got an apartment together, and I moved out because I didn't want to be in the same house as my brother. I was upset with the way my girlfriend was treated, and I wasn't willing to break up with her, which my parents wanted me to do. I had a calm conversation with my parents, explaining why I was moving out. I also explained that it's their house, so they are more than entitled to make rules concerning their own home. However, I was not going to continue living somewhere my girlfriend wasn't welcome, as well as in a place where my brother can act like a complete freak all the time, and it's not going to be punished. At first, they told me they love me, and that they're sorry they ever made me feel that way. They said that they want me to keep a key to the house because I'm always welcome over, and that if I ever needed to move back in, I could. Well, several days later, I went over to pick up some more of my things, only to find that my parents had changed the locks on the house. Later that same week, they tell me they're angry with me for being ungrateful. They even implied that I said that I hate them and that I called them bad parents, which I never said. They went on to tell me that they didn't want to speak to me for a week because they were so upset and that they needed time to process what was going on. They thought I needed to feel what it was like to be cut off of the family. I respected their wishes, and later my parents agreed to family therapy, which they quickly backed out of because they were only willing to do it over a 3-way video call, and my therapist website wasn't able to do that. That same Sunday, my parents parents invited me over for dinner, which I thought was going well, only to find out that they would continue to dodge my calls and leave text messages on read after that night. They eventually contacted me and told me to stop using their house as storage, and told me to come by and pick up my things, despite requesting that I stay away for a week. So my girlfriend and I go over to pick up the rest of our stuff, which was incredibly awkward but thankfully quick. Later that day, I got a text from my mom wishing me luck at college, but my parents still aren't willing to talk about the issue that led to me moving out in the first place. They are also unwilling to come over to see my new apartment, even after being invited over despite the circumstances. Overall, I still love them and I want a relationship with them, since this type of behavior is highly uncharacteristic of them. Understandably, my girlfriend isn't fond of them, but told me she doesn't mind me inviting my parents over because it's important to her that I have a relationship with my parents, especially for the sake of my mental well-being. Has anyone ever dealt with a situation like this before? If so, how did you deal with it? I don't want to lose my parents, but at the same time, I cannot excuse my brother's weird behavior. What should I do? The fact that your family is upset because you set boundaries is honestly not your fault. Your brother was acting incredibly weird towards your girlfriend, and instead of punishing the brother, your parents kick your girlfriend out of your house, which in my opinion is incredibly backwards. And now they're just giving you the cold shoulder and treating you like garbage, all because you put your foot down and decided, no, I'm not gonna take this. If people get upset over your boundaries, then that's their problem. That is not your responsibility to navigate. At the end of the day, your brother was being very weird towards your girlfriend, and was even trying to follow her into the bathroom when she was trying to take a shower. I mean, that's the epitome of weird, and I don't blame you for moving out. So honestly, I would keep your head up and keep going forward in the direction you want to go. If your family wants to be weird and cut you off, well then honestly, I think you're getting off with a better deal, because regardless of what you do, they will probably always make excuses for your brother, and you honestly don't ever have to deal with that ever again if you choose to. My girlfriend uses her phone and watches videos online way too much, and after finally confronting her about it, she got incredibly defensive and very upset, and I'm just so over it and not sure what to do. For the past year or so, my girlfriend has been insanely addicted to Facebook and TikTok. I'm talking, it is literally the only thing I ever see her doing. Like from the second I get home to the second I see her sleeping, and when she wakes up, she opens the app and passes out in 5 minutes with some stupid video playing that I have to listen on repeat until I turn it off. And when I do that, she's only about 90% asleep and gets mad when I do it. I'm so done with this. Last week, she asked me if I was willing to give up my dreams and desires to move across the country just for her, and she said she wouldn't be mad if I said I wanted to live my own life. And after she said this, she went to the bathroom and cried. This was last week. As a side note, she's stuck in this area for a while and she doesn't want to live here. So that's where that conversation came from. I am now at a point where I wish I had just ended this relationship when I had the chance. And honestly, this girl, for 3 out of the 4 years we were together, was the literal love of my life. But this is where things are really causing friction. She will pass out outside watching those stupid videos and literally wake up at 9 in the morning, causing my daughter to be late for her second week of school at a private school. She's almost an hour to an hour and a half late to work, and guess what? She gets mad at me when I ask her to just put the phone down and do something with me. She got so upset with me when I called her out and said, why don't you put the phone down and let's just go to bed and get some sleep? I'm so over this online video stuff, and everything is so contradictory. She always wants to talk whenever it's something going on with her job, or if she just needs to vent. But when it comes to me, I can barely keep her attention for 2 minutes. Her family is in love with me. They tell her all the time to never leave me. My family loves her too. I seriously bend over backwards for this girl, and this is the garbage I get in return. I'm so done, and it's really upsetting. I could be traveling wherever I want and doing whatever I want to do. I put it all back for her because I genuinely love her, and she was worth putting all that back for. But now she's head over heels and obsessed with whatever's happening online with her favorite creators, and I really think I'm about to break up with her. I love her so much, but this is just awful now. It's not worth it. I could be with some girl that actually appreciates me working 6 to 7 days a week and still wanting to spend time with her, not one that just stares at her phone the second she gets home from work to the second she goes to bed. Whoever has been through something like this, please just let me know what happened, and if you fixed it or if it's just a mess and you ended up leaving, because I absolutely don't blame you. I'm old school. I like to fix small things before they're major, but I have no problems being by myself and finding someone else. This is beginning to turn into an engine replacement on an old beater that just simply isn't worth the energy to do anymore. What should I do? It sounds like this guy is at his wit's end, and I can completely understand what he's talking about. There's nothing worse than trying to spend time with your significant other and they're only sitting on their phone and ignoring you completely. But when the roles are reversed, they get upset when you're deciding to spend some time with yourself. And from the sounds of it, it's very imbalanced. I think for this guy, the best thing you can do as a last-ditched effort is to maybe talk to her and be like, hey, we need to figure this out, and just clear the air. Let her know exactly what's going on, because you said it best, you're planning on leaving her, so there's probably nothing to lose when it comes to just explaining how you feel, because this lady is not getting it. This is causing such a rift in your relationship that you don't want anything to do with her, and her actions are negatively affecting your daughter's life. Like, that's more than enough reason for me to be like, wait a second, this is now a serious problem. You can try and waste my time, but don't waste my daughter's time. So I don't blame you for being upset, and you have every right to be, because her actions are incredibly neglectful, and you deserve a lot better than this, and so does your daughter. I mean, what kind of example is that setting for her? And for me personally, entertainment and videos online are very important. They can provide a temporary escape from the things going on if you just need to relax a little bit. But when online videos get in the way of your actual real-life responsibilities, that's when you've got a serious problem on your hand, and that's when you need to make an adjustment. And it sounds like this lady is not self-aware, and she doesn't realize that she's ruining her relationship. So hopefully you have a good talk with her, and hopefully things work out and you don't have to break up, because that would definitely be a rough situation. But at the end of the day, if no progress is being made, then I don't blame you for leaving. My supposedly good friends did not invite me to their wedding, and now I'm not sure where to go from here. I live in a city far away from where I went to college. A few years ago, a couple who went to that college, we'll call them John and Sarah, that's not their real name, moved to my city. I hit it off fast with them despite not knowing them when I was in school, and we all hung out together. Over the years, John and I grew really close. We ended up working together nearby pre-COVID and would get lunch together a lot. John and Sarah actually moved closer to me, and we ended up independently getting the same type of dog, over which we all bonded and had our pups over for many play dates. I consider them to be very close friends. John also had numerous health issues, which I offered to him as well as Sarah to help out in any way that I could, and they were very appreciative. But despite all of this, as well as the friendship that we have, here's the part that really upsets me. This weekend, they got married, and I was not invited. While I know I am not owed anything in life, I can't lie and say that I'm not extremely hurt by this for quite a few reasons. For one, it was a very large wedding. It wasn't like they eloped or kept the family out of it. Nearly all of our mutual friends were invited. Also, one of the aforementioned friends was invited at the last minute, so it wasn't a money issue. They just didn't include me. And they both talked about the wedding plans with me beforehand and never invited me. We are still on speaking terms. In fact, John reached out to me a few weeks ago wanting to get the dogs together. But at this point, it's clear that I clearly overestimated the friendship, and I feel like an idiot for doing that. However, I'm not sure where to go from here. I do think I'll be pulling back from John and Sarah for the sake of my own mental health, but I also don't know if I should have a talk with them about this or about how I'm feeling. Again, I recognize that I'm not owed anything, but I also feel like I can be hurt and allowed to be hurt. I personally think our friendship is over, but should I at least let it go quietly? I don't plan on being rude if I see them again, but gone are the days of me reaching out to see how John is doing or offering to watch their dog ever again. What should I do? That is really disappointing that they did not invite you to their wedding, especially since it was a large wedding and you very easily could have gone and shown your support. So I think it's completely understandable that you feel like you've been left out on purpose. I mean, to an extent, you really have been there for them. You've known them for several years and you've grown a pretty close bond for the most part. So the fact that they would act like this is very strange, especially on their wedding day. You would have thought you'd at least get an invite. But in my own personal opinion, I think your plan to say, hey, I'm going to step away from this is probably a good idea. I don't think they were using you with trying to get you to watch their dog or even you helping out with John with his medical issues. But I think taking a step away for your own mental health, like you said, is probably not a bad idea here. And it really just sucks because you think you have some good friends who you can spend time with and you have common interests with, but it can be very heartbreaking to see that maybe it's not as tightly knit as you thought it was. There's also the possibility that they just saw you as a good work friend. There's probably a really good chance that a lot of other coworkers were not invited to this as well. So you never know, maybe it was just a situational thing and they decided let's not invite anybody from work. Obviously the logistics of this are really complicated and we can't know all the details, but I think your general plan of stepping away for your own mental health and giving yourself some distance from them is probably for the best. An entitled Karen tries to convince a theme park employee that I'm not disabled enough to have a special pass at the theme park I'm going to, and I honestly could not be more disgusted. Here's what happened. I was at a theme park yesterday with my friends, and as the title states, and as I'm sure you can imagine, we looked into some sort of special access pass. I have a rather odd leg condition. It has a name, but I'm not sure what it's called in English, but it's sort of an infection in the ankle bone that has caused permanent damage. Needless to say, getting in rides as well as general things takes just a little bit longer for me. Standing in line all day was something I'd like to avoid. And hey, the theme park is accommodating. They offer a special pass, and mind you, this isn't a fast pass or anything like that. It just puts you in a separate line where there's room for wheelchairs, as well as seats for people like me. Overall, the wait time was pretty much the same thing, but they help a lot with getting into the ride if you're in this line. To get the pass, you didn't need to show anything proving your disability, but it did say you could be subject to being asked to prove it, which is fair enough. I wear special shoes. One is basically a knee-high boot, and it stands out, which most of the employees saw. They checked my pass and everything was fine. I did have the diagnosis from my doctor and a screenshot just in case they would ask. The employees at this park didn't bother me, but the entitled Karen I'm about to describe is a whole other story. I'm standing in line with my companions when someone comes walking up behind us. There were a few people in front of us too. I heard the woman make a loud noise of disappointment at how long the line was. The woman lit up a cigarette, a bit rude to do in a line, and my friend has asthma, so he asked her if she would just step back a little bit, and that is honestly where the problem started. This entitled Karen starts making a noise I can only describe as the call of a Karen. She did move back, but yelled something about how we had to make sure the employee would know she was there and that no one cut in the line. Not an unreasonable request, honestly, but it could have been said in a kinder manner. The employee comes out and checks everyone's pass. They do this because the pass has a mention of whether the visitor will need extra help getting in or out. The employee asked our group who has the pass, so I showed him and everything is fine. They asked the entitled Karen too, and she showed hers. She finished her cigarette and joins the line again, this time asking, "So, what's your disability?" I tell her it's something to do with my leg, and I point at my shoes. She seemed displeased by this, saying, "That's not a disability. I'm asking if you are disabled." At this point, I'm a little thrown off. I'm willing to share it, but it's also something private, and it doesn't concern her. I tell her I have an ankle condition and turn around to stop talking to her. Something to note here, she did have a child with her, though by all appearances there was nothing visibly disabled about them. Not my proudest moment, but the thought of her faking a disability did cross my mind. But I didn't speak on it. The entitled Karen kept talking to me though, but I just kept ignoring her, despite her barking off at me, saying that I needed to respect my elders. Eventually, other people were starting to take notice, and she was starting to draw some attention towards her. One of my friends, a bit comfortable with confrontation, and knowing I'm not, chimed in and said, "Listen, it's none of your business. You wouldn't like it if we asked what you or your daughter's disability is either." To which she responded, "My child is autistic, so she's actually disabled." The employee comes out again, letting people in, and when they reach us, she tells this employee, "This person isn't disabled at all. Remove them from the line, please." The employee looks at us, then back to this entitled Karen, and says, "Well, they have the faculty pass, and we check those." And before he could continue, he gets cut off, and she starts talking about how her daughter is autistic, and I'm clearly not. I responded and said something like, "Yeah, I'm not autistic, but I do have a disability. These shoes aren't exactly a fashion choice." The employee definitely did not want to be involved in this, but he did tell this woman that she has to leave us alone. He let in a few people, my group included, but not the entitled Karen. In the hallway to the ride, he said, "Wow, what was that all about?" I told the employee it happened sometimes, sadly. I thanked the employee for their help, and I enjoyed the ride, but man, do I hate that Karen. I can't believe that that lady would act like that. Like, she clearly jumped in line and already had a chip on her shoulder as it is. But to then come up and be like, "Oh, you're not disabled." Like, who are you to say that? That's such a disgusting thing to do. And it's also really disturbing that she was using her daughter literally just to get in this line, with her just saying, "My daughter's autistic, she's disabled." Yeah, sure, she might have some setbacks, but I have plenty of friends as well as relatives who are autistic, and they're able to function just fine in society. So I find this generally very insulting for her to basically parade her daughter around as if she's just a free pass at a theme park, which in my opinion, that's exactly what she was doing. People like this honestly really disgust me, and it's nice that these people at least stood up for themselves despite the fact that this lady was crazy. I mean, to actually call someone out and be like, you're not disabled, is just so disgusting. Who are you to say what someone is or isn't? A lot of disabilities aren't easily seen, and in some cases are really subtle, that you would have to know the person specifically to understand what's going on. And even then, it's none of your business. Like, why is this lady acting like she's some kind of vigilante to prove people aren't disabled? But in the end, they were at least able to enjoy this ride without that entitled Karen hanging over her shoulder, trying to accuse her of not being disabled enough for this ride, which is absolutely ridiculous. My boyfriend is openly attracted to my cousin and makes no effort to hide it, and now I can't see her in the same way. I am quite close to my cousins, as I spent most of my childhood and preteen years with them. One of my cousins is known to be super beautiful. She has the most gorgeous brown hair and gray eyes. I love her quite a lot, and I've posted her on social media and never really cared even when people compared the both of us. I'm not too bad myself. I have also often been called attractive and have been hit on quite a lot, but among the two of us, she's no doubt the beauty of the family. It never bothered me because I knew we were both beautiful in different ways. This was until 2 years ago. My now ex-boyfriend and I were having a conversation, and I had been showing him my family. While I showed him pictures of all my cousins, he pointed her out and just said, wow, and proceeded to act super interested and asked me for her name. We broke up a few days later after that. A year and a half later, we got back in touch and started dating again. I told him about this incident a few months later when I remembered, and he just laughed it off and said that he was just stupid back then. I decided to end the relationship for good a few months later for reasons unrelated to this. Even though it's been 2 years, his comments made me start seeing my cousin as competition. This frustrates me to no end because I love my cousin, and I don't want anyone else's comments to affect my security within myself. It's just too petty, yet what he did that day just can't seem to leave my head. Keep in mind that me and my cousin still maintain a very happy and a very healthy relationship. I hold nothing against her. If anyone is to blame here, it's my ex. What should I do? I think your ex-boyfriend is an absolute jerk. I mean, why would he do that to you? He's clearly dating you, and it's like, why would he be interested in your cousin? That's so counterintuitive to a healthy relationship. Like, come on. And it really sucks that you now see your cousin as competition, even though you've tried really hard to maintain a good relationship. I think if you want to try and spin this in a good way, you can say to yourself, well, at least I know that my cousin is a bad boyfriend deterrent. She can be a very valuable insight into how your boyfriend actually thinks. But I think in all honesty, you know your cousin better than anybody else. And I think she doesn't view you as competition, and she just loves you. And I don't think you should let anything in your life change when it comes to the relationship you have with your cousin, all because of those dumb comments. That guy is an idiot, and I'm really surprised you even let him back in your life, to be honest. He doesn't understand the relationship you guys have, and he will never be involved in your life ever again. And from the sounds of it, your cousin would never compare herself to you either. So I just wouldn't let this guy's comments get to you. It's not worth letting him rent space in your head, and honestly, you're gonna be so much happier now that you're not dating him. My boyfriend is an avid gamer, and I'm not sure how to navigate this lifestyle. My boyfriend has a full-time 9-to-5 job and will often raid or play with his guildmates on weekends, as well as a few times during the week on a popular MMO. He also games solo every day, and while the length of time is usually different, typically it's about an hour or so. I used to game quite a bit as well myself, but haven't much recently due to being a full-time student and working often as well. I want to stress that I don't look down on him at all for gaming. It's a normal hobby. Gaming culture is a large part of his life, and I don't want to unnecessarily take away from it. Almost 100% of the time, I'll come home from work and he'll be gaming, and once he's done, he'll come back to me and relax with me. This can be as quick as 15 minutes or over an hour and closer to 2. I usually don't mind this, even if I've come back from working all day, because either it was a scheduled activity or it wasn't, and I understand that you can't just leave games when playing, as well as when you're raiding with other people. If I really need to talk to him, I will tell him and he gets off fairly quickly, no problem. However, the scenario that typically upsets me is when we're hanging out and he will randomly get a message from a guildmate to play. He'll ask me if it will be okay to play games, and if I ever say no, stating that I would prefer to hang out or spend time with him still, his mood will shift negatively visibly. So I feel like I have to say that I don't mind even when I do, which really hurts. Another thing during this scenario is he will say that the guild activity will be 30 to 45 minutes, but often it will be closer to 2 hours. I understand that things often don't go as planned with gaming, and it is not his intention. I can find find something to do in the meantime, but it bothers me nonetheless when I'm the one waiting to resume my time with him. These two things make me feel upset about his unplanned raiding and playing with his guild. I'm not sure if we're compatible in the long run, or if there's an easy compromise, because his game and guild is always there. I feel like there's no order. I wish he wasn't so available to a point where there's no times or days that are just off limits. I love him a lot. He's an absolutely amazing person. This is just one problem we can't seem to get over yet, and I need to know how to navigate this. There has to be a solution, considering how common this situation seems to be with couples. What should I do? I think you really need to sit down with your boyfriend and explain exactly how you feel in this regard. You really do need to tell him that you want to spend quality time with him, and that quality time should not be interrupted with friends online who want to game that very moment. He needs to really start putting you first in certain situations. Like if it's a planned activity and you know for a fact he's going to be gaming, then I don't really see a conflict in that regard. You both know what's going on, this is obviously very important to him, and he wants to participate. But the unplanned situations definitely need to be fixed. He needs to realize that his time with you is valuable, and it needs to be seen as more valuable than time with his guild. So I think discussing that with him and setting some kind of boundaries between the both of you that both of you can agree to follow will benefit both of you in the long run. Because the last thing you want is his passion for gaming to cause a rift between the two of you, especially over something that in my opinion very easily can be fixed. Today I messed up by being a grown man on a hotel water slide, and boy was that a mistake. We were vacationing and staying overnight at a mid-range hotel. I enjoy a good soak in a hot tub, and maybe even a dip in the pool afterwards to cool off, so we choose a place that had both. What I didn't know is that attached to the pool was also a water slide. As I enjoyed a nice soak, I watched kid after kid gleefully corkscrew down the slide and gracefully plop into the water like a duck jumping into a lake and swimming off. I decided I wasn't leaving without at least one trip down the slide, so I went up. When I got to the top, it looked much higher than it appeared from ground level, but rather than doing the walk of shame back down, I sucked it up and I went for it. Aside from all the warnings about liability and all this other stuff, there was a sign that said make sure the area is clear before you slide. So a quick check and it all looked good. I even gave myself a massive boost to maximize my enjoyment. About halfway down, I realized I was going very, very fast, like almost upside down in the tube fast. When I hit the water, instead of plopping in gracefully like all of the other 50-pound kids, I came rocketing out of the chute at maximum warp drive and skidded across the pool like a hydroplaning orca. Unfortunately, I also took out 3 unsuspecting kids in the process. When I finally got myself upright in the water, I made sure everyone was okay. Then I noticed the parents' faces who were looking on, which can only be described as horrified, amazement, and disappointed. In the process, I managed to give myself an atomic wedgie and a chlorine nasal cleansing. Needless to say, I quickly packed up my stuff and exited the pool area. Luckily, we were checking out early the next morning, so we got out of there as fast as possible. That is absolutely hilarious to me because I can see that in my head. I can see you skidding across the water and taking these kids out one by one, and I can only imagine what the parents probably thought afterwards. You should be lucky that you didn't get in trouble with like the police or something for hitting their kids by accident. But then again, it's a water slide. Like these things are bound to happen, and from the sounds of it, it didn't seem like there's like an age limit, like you can't be older than 18 or something like that to go on the slide. And to be honest, if I was in your shoes and I went down this water slide, I absolutely would give myself a massive boost going down. It's fun, I'm on vacation, why not? And to this person's credit, the parents really should have been in the pool with the kids and watching over them to make sure that they're not in the path of the water slide. I mean, you've got to know that people are coming in and out of it. People have been doing it apparently the entire time he's been there. So yeah, I wouldn't feel bad about this at all. And sure, yeah, you hit a few kids on the way down, but it sounds like nobody got seriously hurt, and if anything, it taught those kids to stay away from the exit of a water slide to avoid getting hit. And I'm sure after you went rocketing down the slide, that's a lesson that they'll never forget. My mom wants me to break up with my boyfriend despite my boyfriend not doing anything wrong, and I'm not sure what to do. My boyfriend and I have known each other for 5 years as friends before dating. We have now been dating for 6 months. He is an amazing guy, and he is so understanding and reciprocates my love languages like no other partner I've ever had. My boyfriend and I are an interracial couple, but I'm not going to say our races to keep this as anonymous as possible. My mother and I live together, and we don't really have that good of a relationship, and she is in a relationship of her own and is home about 3 days out of the week. When me and my boyfriend first started dating, he was very excited to meet my mom and offered to take me and her out to to dinner to get to know her better. But she gave no answer to that, so he ended up meeting her outside of her home. My mom's boyfriend happened to be there as well, and that whole first meeting went pretty well, or so I thought, because they were all making conversation and it all went over smoothly. He was respectful, didn't make any offensive remarks, offered food, and so I thought it went overall really well. So over the past few months, my boyfriend would come over to hang out. He would pick me up to go out, we would study, or just go to the gym, and he would see my mom often, and they would chat here and there with no indication that anything was wrong. She would even invite him for dinner from time to time. Then, last month, my mom snapped at me about him being over too much and that she wants her space. But again, she's rarely at home herself, so it didn't make any sense. I told my boyfriend about it and he was pretty upset, but he respected her wishes, and we have been seeing each other around her schedule. Then today, a close family member told me that my mom and her boyfriend doesn't like my boyfriend and wants me to break up with him. She went on to tell me that it was because of his race. I didn't know what to say. I felt so hurt and so angry, especially since she couldn't just tell me that herself and instead asked a family member to tell me to break up with him, all because of the color of his skin. Ironically, they liked the ex that was emotionally abusive and cheated on me. Thankfully, my family member understands boundaries and respects my relationship, so they sided with me. My mom doesn't know that I know about this, and I honestly don't know what to do now. I don't know how, or if I even should tell him about this. He went through something like this in his last relationship, and I just feel so bad. How should I approach my mom about this, if at all? I'm in no position to move out either, and I don't know how that's going to change that dynamic. What should I do? I think you should really be careful about this situation, and unless it came from your mom specifically, I wouldn't totally trust what your relative is saying. That's just me personally. I'm the type of person that needs to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, if you know what I mean. I need to hear my mom specifically say, hey, I don't like your significant other because of the color of their skin. Once I hear that, then we can get the ball rolling. But until I get some solid proof that that is the case, I'm not going to jump to some conclusion. There's nothing wrong with being on guard and having your suspicions, but I wouldn't trust outright what this family member is telling me. But let's pretend for a second that this really is true, and your mom really did say this to a relative. If that really is the case, then I think you really need to take that seriously and think about what steps are next in your life. I mean, if it really is true that a relative came to you to tell you what your mom said about your boyfriend, then your mom really has no spine at all, now does she? And you said it yourself, if you're really not in a position to move out, if that's really what you want to do, then maybe it's time to start taking steps so you can secure yourself a place to live if things go really badly, all because of the color of your boyfriend's skin. So hopefully this gets worked out, and hopefully you're able to find some more concrete evidence that your mom even said any of this to begin with. Because from my perspective, I think your relative is just trying to stir the pot, and I am not totally convinced that the entire truth is being told to you at this moment. Today, I messed up by letting out a burp that broke the sound barrier. This happened a year ago. I'm a 20-year-old female, and my boyfriend and I have been dating for 5 years, ever since we were both 15, and things have always been amazing between us. I don't want to get sappy, but he's really a great person. He has helped me heal from so many things, and whenever we're together, I always have to find the nearest tree or wall to lean against because my stomach hurts from laughing too much. Anyways, all of that just to let you know that I always feel very relaxed and comfortable around him. And while that is generally a great thing, it also ended up being the reason why I had this mess up in the first place. One day, we were out on a little date, and we decided to have lunch at a burger place, which is amazing. I got my favorite chicken sandwich with fries and a Coke, which was so good. I scarfed it down like an animal, not realizing how full I was getting. After my meal, I started feeling a bit weird. Nothing serious, just very, very stuffed, and it felt like I needed to get some air out. Now, I'm not very gifted when it comes to farting loudly, or anything like that, but man, I can let out the loudest burps you'll ever hear. I genuinely take pride in that. I usually burp as I please when I'm alone and nobody's nearby, but for the sake of politeness and looking good for my man, I always refrain from burping in front of him. Well, that day I ended up feeling so comfortable and relaxed that I let out the nastiest, most loudest burp that you could ever imagine, and I swear it broke the sound barrier. It lasted a solid 5 seconds. It just totally slipped out. I didn't even realize what I was doing before it was already happening, but boy oh boy did I realize what I had done afterwards. I was mortified. I was so embarrassed I could barely speak. My boyfriend, on the other hand, was peeing himself next to me and told me that other men were probably going to stay away from him because he clearly one-upped all of them with with who he has as a girlfriend. In the end, we were both laughing, and I've been happily burping ever since in front of him. He doesn't mind at all, and he actually kind of joins in sometimes. I'm actually the grosser one in the relationship, but I'm proud I can be gross in front of him. That is a hilarious story, and it sounds like you've got a fantastic boyfriend who absolutely is all in. But I have also had one of those burping fits where you break the sound barrier, and you're pretty sure that your burp was so loud that you probably broke some kind of window somewhere around you, just from the sheer force alone. So good for you for having a boyfriend that's super cool with it and knows how to laugh at a silly situation. You guys have a great relationship from the sounds of it, and hopefully it continues and you're able to burp in front of each other with no problem. My entitled mother tries to force my barber to shave my beard off that I've spent weeks growing out, all without me knowing, simply because she didn't like it. And when I found out, I was absolutely furious. Here's what happened. This story happened in high school when I finally was able to grow a decent enough beard. I loved it, and it made me feel more powerful and confident. On the contrary, my mom hated it though. Anytime I would talk to her, she was always bringing up how I should just get rid of it. She would say stuff like, "You are so much more handsome clean shaven. You just really let yourself go." She would also make snide remarks saying stuff like, "You look homeless. Did you even take a shower?" Claiming that I look like a hippie. She would even try and rationalize it with me to try and get me to shave it no matter what. She would say stuff like, "You should try a mustache." But I don't want to because I'm happy with my beard. I think the reasoning for my mom acting so weird is because my twin cannot grow facial hair, and he is my mom's favorite, so me having a beard is kind of upstaging him. She would say stuff like, "Please just shave. It's making him self-conscious at school." And I would always refuse and just say, "No way, I'm not doing that." She would then say, "You're so rude. Just do this one thing for him." And I'm thinking to myself, I do enough for him already. What are you talking about? She then comes back at me by saying, "Whatever. I want you shaving for graduation and when you get a job." And conversations like this happen over and over again. On the same day that that conversation happened, while at dinner, I told my dad what she told me, and he was upset. My dad likes me more than my brother because I'm less whiny and I'm more athletic, and he thinks that a man's first beard is great. With all that in mind, cut to a few weeks later, and my beard is relatively long, and so is my hair. So I decided to go to the barber's for a trim, and when my mom heard this, she got really excited and even offered to drive me there. On the way there, she kept telling me about all the styles to try, like a buzz cut or a side sweep, and those were all hairstyles that she made us have when we were kids. And then she said, "Why don't you try to shave or try a new style with a mustache out there or something?" I looked at her and I said, "No, I am never shaving my beard." But she didn't take me seriously and she just kind of brushed me off. When we get there, strangely enough, I see my grandpa sitting in the barber shop as well. For a little background, my grandfather is a veteran, and he believes every boy should be disciplined, join the army, and be clean shaven and have short hair. In fact, in the past, he would come over to the house, hand me a razor, and tell me to shave. Also, when we were younger, he was our barber, so he did what he pleased with our hair, despite what we did or did not want. So we go in, we sit down, and eventually it's my turn to get my haircut. And as I'm sitting down to turn to talk to my barber and tell him what I want done with my hair, my entitled mother flags him over and walks into another room with him just to talk with him in private. And I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. Eventually, my mom and the barber comes out of this back room, and he comes to me and says, "Wow, I never thought you were gonna shave anytime soon." When he said this, I was so confused and shocked. I asked him what he meant, and then he told me that my mom said to him that I wanted to shave my beard and that I wanted to have short hair because I hated it now, apparently, which is absolutely not true. He also said that they tried to bribe him and give him $20 to do it. I was so shocked and speechless that I could not even think straight. I tell him that's not at all what I asked for, and he just laughs and gives me a nice trim, thankfully. When we were done and when we got back in the car, and once my mom found out that I knew she tried to bribe the barber just to try and shave off my beard, she was livid. But I was just as angry, and I shut her down for trying to do something like that to me. And as a result of that conversation, I ended up getting grounded. When we got home, I told my dad what happened, and when mom was confronted, she denied it. it, and only until I told my dad that I was grounded did she finally fess up to it. And then eventually the subject just kind of got dropped. Thankfully, I was able to keep my beard, and all these years later, I grow it out and I shave it as much as I like, because it's my facial hair, it's my body, and no one's gonna tell me what I can and cannot do with it. That is really unfair the way the mom tried to bribe a barber just to try and shave the original poster's beard against their will. Like, what are they gonna do, try and hold him down and get that done? That's ridiculous. Good on the barber for having some integrity and saying, no, I'm definitely not gonna do that. Because acting like that is just inappropriate. I really don't think there's anything wrong with trying to grow out your hair and try something new. It's really, really offensive for someone to try and force their will on you, especially when it comes to hair. This original poster obviously had some attachment to his beard, so he's not just gonna go off and start shaving it just because his mom doesn't like it. And I also think it's funny that the mom tried to get the veteran grandfather in on this to try and convince this kid to shave his beard and to continue an appearance that he probably had forced on him ever since he was a kid. So thankfully things worked out, and now they can style their facial hair however they want, whenever they want. I was duped by a scammer, and now I'm afraid my wife is going to leave me. A few years ago, while my wife of 9 years was out of town, I received a text message at 3 in the morning saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know that your wife is cheating on you. And this was someone who was claiming to be the wife of the guy that she was apparently cheating with. She said that they were on a break at the time, so she wasn't too upset with him. But once she found out that my wife was married, she wanted to let me know to give me a warning. She said he was a contractor and named several cities nearby that he worked in. This person said that they weren't sure how they met, but that she found my wife's phone number on his Google account, and when she searched it, our names came up. So I searched the number that she had, and lo and behold, our names did in fact come up. I'll say now that my wife and I have had problems over the last couple of years. I love her more than anything. I know she loves me too, but she has admitted that she's not really in love with me, at least not the way she used to be. She's brought up divorce a few times, but I know that's not what either of us really want. We just want to be happy together like we used to be. I know that she needs more from me, and I've been working really hard to show her that I'm the man that she's always dreamed about. My insecurities got the best of me, and I started to wonder if there was any truth to it. I love my wife so much, and I've always trusted her 100%, but hearing all of this was really taking a toll on me. I started shaking and my heart rate jumped, and it stayed this way for the next 12 hours. I continued talking to this woman on the phone, and she was giving me details and dates of when my wife and her husband had met up, as well as places they had been together. I tried to cross-reference the dates between our calendars and my text messages, but because of my wife's job, she often works late and travels out of town. Personally, I have a terrible memory, and in the mental state I was in, I just couldn't make myself sure that it was lies, that all of this was made up. This woman wanted to talk on the phone because she was scared that her husband would find the text messages somehow. I agreed, and then I called her. Now, I've dealt with scammers quite a bit. I have heard of millions of scams and read about them frequently online. I'm always the person that can jump in and say, oh, that sounds like an absolute scam. But this woman sounded totally normal, and it felt like she could be local to my area. We talked for about 20 minutes, and she sounded concerned and gave me more details, but nothing that I could 100% confirm. She never brought up anything that would make me feel like it was a scam. This lady went on to say that he and my wife had met up in an apartment and that there was a toddler there the same age as our toddler. She wouldn't give me his information besides a first name and a few numbers from his phone number, just so I could check her contacts. She did send me 2 pictures of herself and her husband together. After that phone call, I did not sleep at all that night. I didn't know what to think, and I couldn't get myself to calm down. I didn't want to believe that my whole life was over. I didn't want to think that this person that I loved and trusted more than anything could do this terrible thing to me. But I didn't know why somebody would message all these things and call me. I definitely considered that it could be a scam, or possibly someone from mine or my wife's past that wanted to hurt us and break us apart. My wife continued texting me into the next day, and this would be the day that my wife came back from out of town. As a side note, my wife and I have been on hard financial times, for a while at least, and we've been living with her parents. It's not ideal and causes a lot of stress for both of us. When my wife got home, she came down to our bedroom and asked her mom to watch our toddler for a little bit. I held up a picture of the guy the woman accused her of sleeping with and asked if my wife knew who it was. I looked into her eyes and and she was confused. She had no idea who this was. I knew in that moment that none of it was true. I broke down crying, and she just kept asking what was going on. I told her, and she was concerned that someone had gotten her information somehow and was trying to do something to her to ruin her business. I called the number that the woman had given me, and another woman answered and screamed at me, saying that this was harassment and that she was going to file a suit if I didn't leave her alone. Not even 2 minutes later, the police showed up. They had received a call that I was somehow in danger and that they were coming by to do a wellness check. Of course, this threw everything into overdrive. Now we had to explain to her family what was going on, and I made everything 100 times worse. The police took turns talking to me and my wife, both of us assuring them that nothing was wrong and that I was not in danger. It turns out that the number was the wrong area code, but otherwise the exact number for the original landline for my wife's family house, and that's why their names were connected. Eventually, everything kind of calmed down, but things are not okay between my wife and I. She read through the messages and thinks it was an obvious scam of some kind. She's really upset that I don't trust her, and she blames herself for that because of the problems that we've had. I can tell she's trying to act normal, but every time I've tried to give her a kiss or get close to her, I can feel that she really is not involved. I feel like this is a nightmare that I can't wake up from. Our marriage was on a really positive trajectory, and things were getting so much better, and now I feel like there's no hope. I wish I knew what I could say to make up for this, and to let my wife know that I love her and that I trust her 100%. I wish there was some way I could fix this, or to at least go back in time and not be such an idiot. I don't know what I did to deserve this. I wish whoever did this could feel the pain I'm in now and know the damage and the hurt that they caused our family. What should I do? This is honestly a really sketchy situation, because either your wife really is cheating on you, or she's a fantastic actress and was able to pull it off completely even when the cops were called. And I also don't know how much of a scam this really is. There was a lot of really specific details about your wife and where she's going, as well as like details about her life that this person really knew a lot about. And sure, maybe there is someone out there that's trying to ruin your life, but sometimes the simplest solution is really the answer. Maybe that's not this case, I could be wrong, but it all just seems really super specific. And they didn't even try and blackmail you for money or do something to try and extort you for cash or something. All they said was like, hey, your wife's cheating on you and this is who it's with. But in that same vein of thought, they still didn't give you any specifics. Like if this is really somebody who's looking out for you and trying to let you know, they would have been like, oh, it's such and such, here's their first and last name, as well as their address and phone number. Go get them. So this is just really weird overall. But also it begs the question of how these people reacted when you called them back. They freaked out on you and said they were going to try and file a suit for harassment. But then the phone records as well as the text messages would prove that they wanted to talk to you on the phone, which then leads me to believe that they probably did that so nothing would be written down that they said on the phone. But in all honesty, whether this is somebody really trying to warn you or someone just trying to ruin your life or somebody who didn't quite get to the point where they were trying to get money from you, all things considered, this is really ridiculous situation. Like for me personally, when someone texts me and says something absolutely random, I'm not about to believe them for a second. I want some serious hard evidence before I start jumping to conclusions. So going to your wife and saying, hey, are you cheating on me? And holding up a picture of some guy only for her to then look confused and be like, what are you talking about? Is honestly not the best way to figure out the truth. If I was seriously worried that my wife was cheating on me, I would have hired a private investigator to get a look and see what exactly is going on. There are services available to try and figure out if someone's doing something nefarious, especially if your spouse is having an affair or if you're worried that they are. You'll find out pretty quickly from these people. So yeah, you went about this in a really bad way in my opinion, all things considered, and this could have been handled in a much better and discreet way that didn't uproot your life completely. Hopefully things work out for you, but from the sounds of it, it does not look too good. I keep getting calls and text messages from strangers asking me why I blocked my ex-friend, and I'm honestly not sure what to do about it. I am 20 years old and I've begun getting text messages, calls, and direct messages from someone I do not know asking me why I blocked a now ex-friend out of nowhere. Prior to this, we had been friends for a little over 2 years. I blocked this ex-friend with no explanation to them after I realized how mean they were to me, since they were making fun of me whenever I considered changing my name to fit my gender identity, as well as told me they didn't think I'm autistic after my diagnosis. And they have tried on multiple occasions to put me in really terrible situations that I'm uncomfortable with. And you know what? After seeing that, and after I got busy with school and was off Snapchat for about 2 months, they unadded me on everything and began talking badly about me online. I decided to go all the way and just block them. Part of me feels guilty for never giving an explanation and for just walking away, but I'm also angry and uncomfortable that their response is to now hand out my phone number to all of their internet friends so that they can harass me with text messages and calls, demanding an answer as to why I blocked my friend without an explanation. But I find myself wanting to be petty. I want to give an actual answer. I want to ignore it. I want to cuss them out and block the number, but I just don't know what to do. I've talked with my therapist, and she said it's important that I put myself first, and you don't owe anyone any of your time. But I honestly still feel guilty about all of this. What should I do? In my opinion, as someone who has gone through something similar to this, your therapist is 100% correct. I've gone down the route of giving someone my time and explaining why I cut them out of my life. And guess what? It only made the situation worse. Do not give them any of your time. You don't have to explain anything. All of the people involved in this story are adults, and you know what? It's time for everybody to grow up. Block them and move on. You really will have a better life without them making fun of you behind your back. You don't need people like that, and people like that are not your friends. They don't care about you at all, and they are only in it just so they can make fun of you. After all, everything they're saying is at your expense. I mean, they removed you from Snapchat so you couldn't see their conversations, and they're just making fun of you. So I just wouldn't even waste your time. So when it comes to these phone calls and these text messages and these direct messages, I would just straight up block them and delete them and get rid of them. Eventually, these people will stop. They'll realize, hey, I'm not going to get an explanation, and they will eventually just give up and look for their next victim. So don't allow them to make you a victim. Move on and live a better life, because you're gonna feel a lot better away from these terrible people. My husband has had an ongoing affair with his boss, but he refuses to find another job, and I'm unbelievably uncomfortable. And now I don't know what to do. To give some background information, my husband works for a construction company. His direct boss is a woman who we will call Sarah. That is not her real name. A little over a year ago, I found out that my husband was cheating on me with Sarah. I found mountains of evidence on his computer and on his phone. There were text messages of him calling her his girlfriend, talking about how in love with each other they are, as well as some inappropriate photos of her, and then some. They had been having a love affair behind my back for at least a year, likely longer. After reading the messages, it's clear that Sarah knew I existed, and that my husband and I had 2 daughters together. My husband hadn't told Sarah about my second pregnancy until close to the birth, but they still saw each other all the way up to the birth of my child. My husband is the breadwinner of our home. I am a stay-at-home mom with our 2 daughters, and this honestly puts me in a horrible position on what to do about this. Eventually, I confronted him about everything. He admitted it, said it was a mistake, and vowed to end things with Sarah. I ended up sending Sarah a pretty lengthy text message saying that she ruined my marriage and that what she did was a horrible thing to do to another woman. She never answered that message. I had asked my husband to find another job, but he refused, saying to me that the paycheck and the insurance benefits for our family were too good to pass up. I reluctantly agreed, as long as communication with Sarah was at a bare minimum, and that it was strictly professional, as she is technically his boss. Again, this was over a year ago. We have both worked hard to move past this, and things have been overall okay in our relationship. But recently, I've been noticing a similar pattern of behavior from my husband, involving things that he was doing in the time he was having an affair with Sarah. He would go in early, he would stay later than he put in his hours for. I've checked the phone records, and it seems he has been talking to her more than usual. I asked him about this, but he's denied anything is going on. He also says Sarah is in a relationship and has been living with this man for a year, and there is nothing happening between them any longer. I listened to my gut that told me something was off and called my company's office. I was told by the woman I spoke to that they don't involve themselves with the personal lives of their employees. Then she just hung up on me. My husband came home livid that day. The woman in the office called Sarah and told her. Sarah just laughed and ended up telling my husband that I called. My husband is now yelling at me, saying I overstepped, stating that nothing is going on between them. He's also mad because if anything were to happen, he would be the one to get fired based on Sarah's position at the company, and that her dad is the boss. Also, my husband's brother works for Sarah as well. He is very close friends with her, and he knew about my affair. My father-in-law is also an employee of Sarah. He also knew about the affair, as well as Sarah's dad. How do I get this woman out of our lives? How can I trust my husband again? Sarah is obviously not going anywhere, and I am so uncomfortable with them working together. I also have no evidence the cheating is still happening. What should I do? This is a crazy situation because I honestly can't believe that your husband is not taking the steps to find another job. If he really cared about you and your kids, he would move away from the company where he cheated on you and go somewhere else. I genuinely don't care how good the pay is, or how much he makes, or how good the insurance benefits are. He cheated on you with his boss, and guess what? He still works for that boss. It's absolutely unbelievable. And in my opinion, the problem is not with Sarah. Sarah is a steaming pile of garbage, don't get me wrong, but please understand that the problem is with your husband. You clearly do not trust your husband. And if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't trust him at all either. He's repeating the same behavior as last time. He's going in early, he's staying out late. You have phone records of him talking to her more. This all literally lines up for when he cheated on you before. I totally understand why you're upset, but you need to focus your energy and anger at your husband. He has been unfaithful, and he's doing nothing to make sure you have some kind of confidence in him. And in my opinion, if this continues, I really don't know how your marriage is going to work out. Like, he's working there, his dad's working there, his brother's working there, and it seems like everybody knew about this cheating except for you. And that is just absolutely unbelievably unacceptable. So I think you need to put the full court press on your husband to get this woman out of your life. There's unfortunately not much you can do, but there is a lot your husband can do. And if he's not willing to take the steps to ensure that you're confident in your marriage, then that honestly is a really big red flag that you need to consider moving forward. An entitled Karen threatens to get me fired from my job, all because her spoiled rotten kid was rude to me and I put him in his place. Things got so bad that I eventually had to explain myself to my boss. Here's what happened. I taught part-time at the local community college, which means I only get paid for the time that I teach. Extracurriculars are at my discretion. The semester is officially over, but I had to pick up something. I went to say hi to the department secretary, whom I'm friends with, and she says to me, "I know it's not your responsibility, but would you please contact this kid who's interested in taking the beginning class, but wants some information first? The other guy who usually takes care of this is not available," and I kind of feel bad for the kid. I listen to what she has to say, and then I say, "Okay, sure, I'll happily do that." I have him email me, and I see what I can do. So I get an email from this kid who's still in high school, and he explains that he's in a program that allows him to take one college class, and he's trying to decide between astronomy and my class. And in this decision-making process, he was requesting that I give him a call so he can ask me a bunch of questions. Now, I don't want him to have my phone number, and I just started a job with long hours where I wasn't getting home until around midnight. Plus, the way he was wording his email was definitely not a request. On the contrary, it came off as some weird, entitled demand that definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. And this only led me to think, is this what he's going to be like in class? Are these going to be the emails that I'm going to have to deal with? So I emailed him the detailed class syllabus that lays out the entire semester with every assignment and due dates listed. I hated instructors who couldn't stick to the syllabus, so I always made sure mine was accurate. After that, I tell him to feel free to email me with any further questions, and I will happily get back to him. He then responds, and he says that he really needs to talk to me without really elaborating why. So I email him back and say that the syllabus is comprehensive and self-explanatory, and then encourage him to email me any specific questions, and then I would be happy to answer them. And then I ended my email by saying, also, here's some friendly advice. It's a little rude when you keep insisting on a private phone call after someone has expressed a clear preference for email. The next night, I get home exhausted and just wanted to go to bed. And of course, there's an email, but it's from his mother. And boy, is she upset. She says, "It is not rude to ask for a phone call. Actually, it's wise of him to ask. My son wasn't rude. You were. You lack self-respect and intelligence. I will be forwarding this to your department chair because you're unfit to teach, and I'll make sure you don't anymore." And after reading this threatening email, all I could do was laugh. And I wasn't really angry per se, but rather I was just very annoyed, and I was most definitely not going to let that slide. And I will admit it, this is a character flaw that I try really hard not to indulge in, but sometimes I just can't help it. I wrote back and said, "Please stop with your petty threats. It's laughable and you're embarrassing yourself. If my job is contingent on the approval of some obnoxious parent like you, I would just quit. I'm on summer vacation. I'm not getting paid for this. I didn't have to respond to your son either at all, but I did it as a courtesy. Under no circumstances whatsoever do I I owe anyone a phone call. As for my self-respect, I have enough not to cater to a parent with an inflated sense of entitlement and self-importance. I don't care if your son takes my class or not. It makes no difference to me. I have no shortage of students wanting to take my class, and I'll be fine without them. Then, to top off this beautiful email, I took what I would consider a really cheap shot, but I simply couldn't resist it once I thought of it. I then said, your son will be better off taking astrology, where he will learn that he's not the center of the universe. You should take it with him. The kid probably didn't deserve that much, even as entitled as he was acting in his email, but his mother definitely did. At the next semester's faculty meeting, I apologized to the chair if I caused any problems, but I explained that she had bothered me. He laughed and said, I could tell. It was kind of impressive though. He said it was no big deal and that they get angry parents all the time. He even noticed that the mother and son in that situation had different last names, so she was probably just the stepmother who pushed him about calling and took it out on me when I told him he was rude. He read the emails and could see I was trying to help him. The secretary said, I'm so sorry I asked you to contact him, to which I responded, that's okay. I kinda had fun with it. And to be honest, I really did. I just love it whenever people have the power position and the Karen does not realize it. This entitled Karen really was gonna try and go for this guy's job, but thankfully he didn't bend over and take that kind of treatment for a second. It really is reinvigorating to see stuff like this, because people who act this snobby and rude absolutely deserve to get shut down. And thankfully, this guy did just that and put this entitled Karen right in their place. My boyfriend is refusing to stop being friends with the girl he cheated on me with, and I genuinely don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been dating for about 11 months. I found out in March that he had cheated on me with one of my very close friends. I decided to forgive him because I love him, and he has been doing so much to make it up to me. That is, everything except not being friends with this lady. He has known her for, I would say, about 10 years, and she has helped him through his mental illnesses, as well as some other mad things that happened to him. He constantly reassures me that he isn't attracted to her at all, and he doesn't know why he even did it in the first place. He also acknowledges that he overstepped a boundary that will never again be overstepped. He also lets me see all of his messages with her and has limited contact with her and only talks to her maybe once every 3 days. As a side note, he did spend some quality time with her, but in my eyes, that doesn't make it any better. He still cheated. He tells me just about every day that he loves me and that I'm the only one he sees himself with, and yet he still will not completely cut this girl off. The fact that he is still talking to her at all is extremely uncomfortable for me, and it makes me feel absolutely awful. My boyfriend keeps getting upset that I bring up that fact and that I don't want him to be friends with her anymore. And honestly, I don't know what to do anymore. I feel like I'm in the wrong for asking him to end a friendship, and I'm truly not sure what direction to go. What should I do? This is really a sad situation because not only did your boyfriend cheat on you with your best friend, who's also friends with him for about 10 years, but you also forgave him and welcomed him back into your life. And that really was not the best move for you. You're telling us that you're making steps together as a couple to improve your trust with one another and to be a stronger couple, but his action in staying friends with the very girl he cheated on you with is in complete contradiction with what is actually happening. I honestly think every time he tells you that, oh, I love you and you're the only one I see myself with, is absolute BS in my opinion. If he really cared and if he really wanted to be with you, he would have cut off communication with this lady immediately, and he would be so remorseful for ever jeopardizing his relationship with you. Instead, what is probably happening, in my opinion, is that he feels like, oh, I can still spend time with this lady because my girlfriend welcomed me back and no negative repercussions really came my way as a result of this. Sweet. In my opinion, this is super suspicious. And if you want this relationship to last, this is something that definitely has to be cut off. So it really does come down between you as well as this girl that he cheated on you with. He really does have to make a decision. So hopefully this works out and hopefully your boyfriend chooses you. Because as of right now, it seems like he's made his decision. And his decision involves staying in touch with this lady as well as trying to call you his girlfriend. My husband is having an emotional affair with his online friend, and I'm not sure what to do. My husband is heavy into online gaming. Whenever he is not at work, work, he is playing games and chatting with his friends on Discord. There's a girl that has joined their group of friends that he has recently started to play with alone. He claims it's because no one else is around, but it's getting to the point that they are now talking on voice chat alone for hours and texting outside of the game. I went on his computer today and found some messages between them that I found highly inappropriate. It wasn't anything that would be outright cheating, but saying things like they miss each other, as well as them making plans to travel to meet in real life, while also expressing how much they enjoy spending time with each other. They made plans to watch Netflix on a party together, and he has even downloaded games just to play with her. My husband has been very down lately about work as well as his life in general, but he will never talk to me about it. Instead, he will just stay in his computer room and play video games. But in this conversation, I saw that he had been opening up to her about some very personal things. He also quite often will neglect plans with me in order to talk to her. To top it all off, I was reading through his other Discord messages and saw a chat with a random person where he was pretending to be me and even told this person details about my life while acting as me. The whole situation is incredibly messed up, and I know I need to say something, but I don't know how to do it and to justify my snooping on his computer. I'm honestly at a loss, and I don't know how to handle this situation. What should I do? I think honestly you definitely need to have a conversation about this, because the way he's acting is really inappropriate, as it looks like he's completely ignoring you as well as objective reality. It seems like he wants to go with this alternate reality where he opens up to this random chick online and refuses to have a real conversation with you, his wife. Like he is straight up having an emotional affair with somebody. And even if he gets upset because you were snooping around on his computer, what he's doing is way worse. Not to mention, he's doing this weird thing where he's impersonating you online and pretending to be you and giving out your personal information. I mean, what is up with that? That is completely inappropriate. And while I totally understand how it's easier to open up to somebody online who you don't know and probably will never meet, this man is opening up to another woman while ignoring his actual wife. Your husband should really be talking to you about his problems, as well as the things going on in his life and at work. Instead, he's using Discord as an escape from his reality, and that is honestly, in my opinion, very unhealthy. So you definitely need to say something about this, because this could really lead to something much worse than just emotionally cheating, and it's better to set some boundaries as well as guidelines between the two of you than to let this continue. Today, I messed up by taunting my cat and getting exactly what I deserve. To set the stage, I'm a 30-year-old female and I knew nothing about cats last year and ended up adopting one anyways. I know, this is a mess up of a year in the making. To further set the stage, I missed the whole cat craze online. I didn't know about the fact that cats are typically jerks and they will knock things over just for fun. My fiance wants to ban my son from our wedding because he doesn't want his friends to know that he's marrying a single mom, and I'm not sure what to do. I have been with my fiance for 1.5 years. He just proposed and our wedding is in 4 months. His family is prominent in the local society scene. They have several businesses around and are major donors to local politicians and churches. I have a 5-year-old son. I married his dad, but the marriage was annulled a week later. His dad has partial custody, but he lives with me most of the time. My fiance and his family have a lot of friends that are people who are often invited around to big occasions, such as weddings and other events. They don't know that much about our lives, except what my fiance tells them. His family, of course, knows that I have a child. While they are nice to my son, they told my fiance that they feel uncomfortable with the fact that I have had a child so young and the fact that my previous marriage was annulled, so in their eyes, it just makes me look even worse. So it first started off with them saying that we should never mention that I ever had another wedding ever. And then that immediately turned into,
well, why should we tell anybody that she is a single mom? Nobody will ask probably, so there's no point in giving out unnecessary information.
So far, even his close friends that he goes out to lunch with or even plays tennis with every week have never met my son. I don't have my son on any social media profile, nor do I bring him out to any of our date nights in public, so nobody really knows in that circle, especially since we didn't move in together until he proposed. However, now the topic of my son has become a problem again with his very devout parents. My fiance sat me down today and actually asked me if we could drop my son off at his cousin's house 45 minutes away the day before the wedding and let him have a fun long weekend there. I told him that I wanted my son to be a part of the wedding, especially since my soon-to-be nieces and nephews by marriage are going to play play parts in it. My fiance said that a lot of his society friends are older people and judge others harshly, and that he loves me, but he doesn't want there to be social media comments about him marrying a single mom to spoil our day. He said that he didn't introduce my son to his closest friends because we were dating at that point, and there was no need for them to know, but they will be respectful about it. However, our wedding would be featured in a local newspaper, and the current mayor and well-respected pastor will be coming to it, so he begged me to just leave my son out of the wedding. He apologized for how this came about and says that he regrets letting this evasiveness go on for so long, but there's no way to properly explain why I have a 5-year-old boy that they were not told about. I got pretty angry because I suspected that while his associates tend to be rather gossipy and straight-laced, that at least part of the reason was because my fiance could not get used to my son and always refers to my ex with contempt and called my previous relationship with him a giant mistake that should not have happened, and how excited he is to begin our family once we are married. I'm honestly at a loss for this because I really want my son to be a part of my wedding, but I feel like I am at a crossroads. What should I do? I legitimately cannot believe that your fiance is acting like this. Your fiance, just to recap, wants to hide your son away so nobody else knows that you have a son already because he doesn't like the look of marrying a single mom. Well, guess what? That's exactly what you are. You have a 5-year-old kid and your fiance is actively telling you he does not want that a part of your special day, when in reality, your son absolutely should be there for the wedding. It is so disrespectful to yourself as well as your son to exclude him from the day that should be highly celebrated. And honestly, who cares who he's friends with? I don't care if the Pope is showing up to that wedding. You absolutely should have your 5-year-old son with you on this day. I mean, this guy's getting married to you and he's clearly ashamed that you're a single mom and that you have a 5-year-old kid. I'm honestly surprised that you would even want to get married to someone who feels this way about your son. And yeah, he's not outright saying that he doesn't like your 5-year-old kid, but he is actively trying to get you to not allow him at your wedding. Imagine trying to explain this to your son later in life when he's 16 years old and asking why you didn't want him at his wedding, as well as why his stepfather did not want him there at the wedding as well. You have a chance to stand up for your son and to be there in his corner. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, this wedding definitely would be delayed until we find some compromise where my son can be involved in my wedding. There's no way I would let that slide, and honestly, I hope you don't let that slide either, because you owe it to yourself as well as your son to have him involved. My boyfriend ghosted me after I went to a concert with my friends, and I'm not sure what to do. I already have a gut feeling of how this is going to end, but I need to hear from strangers on the internet. So myself as well as my boyfriend have been together for over a year now. We have had 2 apartments together and 3 cats. We've been good friends for 7 years as well before our relationship. Our relationship has been a bit of a roller coaster due to our mental health struggles, but we've always made things work in the end with love and understanding. This past weekend, we had bought tickets to go to a festival, but mine got canceled last minute. My boyfriend isn't the biggest fan of festivals, and the type of music at this festival is not his favorite either, because in his words, it's for girls to dance around undressed while being really inappropriate, and it's just a place for people to have an excuse to waste their life away. I've tried to explain to him time after time how it really isn't like that, and it's invalid since he's never actually been to a festival or let alone a concert in his life. He simply doesn't understand. But I managed to convince him to go, and we were excited all the way up until it got canceled. So instead, my friends and I planned to get tickets for a show for one night instead. He refused to go to that and has been extremely moody all week, accusing me of going to cheat on him and to dress really inappropriately just for attention. Literally anything harmful he could think of to try and make me not go, he basically said. We have no history of cheating, and I've only been to one show in our relationship, which again, he behaved towards me the same way, but not to this extreme. This is definitely new behavior. I went with my 2 best friends anyway, because I know I'm not doing anything wrong, and I wanted to have a fun night out and see my favorite artist. I promised not to partake in any substances, and to keep the drinking to a medium. I ended up only buying like 3 drinks over the night, so it wasn't even that bad. Since I left on Friday afternoon, afternoon, I haven't heard from him since then. It is now Sunday, and I've texted him multiple times, giving my updates through the day, all so he can be reassured that I'm safe. But I never got a reply to anything. No checking in, nothing, despite us constantly texting when we are apart. I ended up getting home on Saturday evening, and he's still not here. I'm assuming he's with family, but I honestly don't know where he is. And he's not answering my calls or my text messages. I heard from his mom that they're together, but that's it. I feel awful, angry, sad, lonely. I can't wrap my head around how he cares so little about me and is willing to ruin everything over going out for one night. My friend's theory is that he's cheating on me because of his suddenly random outbursts of accusing me and calling me names, and is using me going out to direct his insecurities onto me. But I really don't know. We are a great team and he's my best friend, but this is so out of character for him, and I'm really not sure what to do. He'll be home either tonight or tomorrow because he has work Monday, and I have no idea how this will end. What should I do? It is definitely really suspicious that your boyfriend suddenly drops off the face of the earth, all because you went out to a concert with your friends. And it's also really weird that he would accuse you of cheating when you've never had any history of cheating ever in your relationship. I certainly would not buy into what your friend is saying, where they are claiming that your boyfriend is somehow cheating on you because of the way he's acting. I personally would not jump to that conclusion without any kind of evidence, but it is definitely really concerning that he's showing this type of behavior. I mean, you said it best yourself. He's never acted like this, and you feel like you're a really good team. So why now would he suddenly ghost you, all because you went to a concert? I personally wonder if he has some kind of like vendetta against concerts or festivals. Like maybe he has some previous bad experience in a relationship, and he's worried that this is going to happen again. But even then, you've been together long enough where it's like, I mean, come on. We have to know each other and trust each other by this point, right? So I think if anything, you definitely need to talk to him about this and try and figure out what went wrong and why he's so upset. Because this is a really small thing. You went to see your favorite musical artist. It's not like you went and said, hey, I'm gonna get with every guy that I see, because that's definitely not what happened. So hopefully this conversation goes well, and hopefully he's able to be reasonable about everything going on, because based on what you've described, he's done everything but that, and you definitely don't deserve that. My boyfriend's immaturity is causing a lot of damages in this relationship, and I'm not sure what to do. My boyfriend is the only child, and his parents never taught him responsibilities in his life. He was raised in a greenhouse environment, and his mom did everything for him. He wasn't even taught to pick up his own toys after playtime as a kid. He seemed like he had it all together with a good education, a good background, and a good job that pays decently well. I was in shock and experienced huge disappointment that he turned out the way he is. I didn't realize a lot of the things until he started to reveal them. His communication style is really bad. He tends to have a really bad temper or pull a temper tantrum rather than having a gracious conversation to compromise. I had to teach him to compromise, and that not everything goes your way. He also doesn't like talking about his emotions or things that are related to our relationship. He is a poor communicator and is constantly keeping me out of the loop on things. His tactic is to avoid people and to avoid problems, all the way up until I start complaining about it, in which he then complains about it. He does these things all the time, and it really upsets me. And when I would confront him and tell him that I am upset because of what he did, no matter what, it was simply wrong. He always has a problem accepting that he is wrong and just start another fight. He would want proof and to analyze the situation just so he can confirm and validate if he would agree that this would upset me. I would find myself explaining for hours to have him understand why he upset me. And all he has to do is simply admit it and apologize. But he would fight and even personally attack me. Things would even get so bad that he would only get apologetic until he realized that I had been crying for hours. And this is all after a very long and tiring conversation. What matters more to him is proving me that I should not be upset. It is pretty hurtful because he completely disregarded the fact that I was crying because of something that he did to me. Unfortunately, this has been a vicious cycle. Now, if I get upset at something he did, it is always a fight, even if I come at this with a calm demeanor. I just try not to get upset, but it's always something that he can quickly invalidate. After a serious conversation I had with him about these problems, he did acknowledge he needs therapy. He doesn't want to truly grow up, and he has issues with society not labeling him as a responsible man. He simply doesn't like doing things that would label him as a grown man in society's eyes. If anything, it just agitates him. And even when it comes to responsibilities around the house, It is a huge deal that he has to share them and even be involved at all. We never have gracious conversations, and he says that he's constantly feeling attacked by me. And I have to admit, after spending so much time with him and trying to get to know him, as well as trying to help him understand where I'm coming from, even at a base level, is really starting to make me lose my patience. To this day, he still has not spoken to a therapist. It has been almost a year. I wasn't happy about it, and he was giving me excuses, stating that time was a big commitment for him. Therapy is not something he looks forward to, but I did not accept his excuses. What I pointed out was how he spent his time, as well as his money, prepaying and planning his snowboarding adventures in the winter, but not seriously seeking therapy or even having a plan to improve our relationship. I obviously had not been happy with him, and he is always angry and always gets upset with me. And no matter what, he always has to find a reason to blame me. And while he reconfirmed to me that he's going to start seeking therapy, in my opinion, this should have been done a lot sooner. I am very upset and I'm incredibly hurt that he turned out this way, and I feel like this is really starting to depress me. What should I do? It honestly sounds like you're dating a 12-year-old. As a note, this man is 29 years old. How does someone get that far in life without having basic communication skills, with the baseline ability to at least talk, as well as some plan to take care of themselves? I mean, this is just unacceptable. No matter what you say or do, this man completely invalidates every experience you have, regardless of the context, and that is absolutely unfair. It looks like you're trying to do all the legwork when it comes to communicating, and he simply doesn't care at all. He is always going to try and find some way to invalidate you and to try and rationalize why you're upset. And it sounds like it's just a pride issue because he doesn't want to be proven wrong. Well, guess what? When you're in a relationship, you're not always going to be right. It's going to be compromises left and right, and you're going to work together for better goals between the two of you. That's just how it works. Sometimes you have to give some ground away, and that's okay because you love the other person. And I think the original poster, she's trying to do that, but her boyfriend is just incredibly immature. It's like this grown-up Peter Pan who never grew up, whose parents never disciplined him, and so his only way to react was to throw a temper tantrum. Like, how did he get this far with nobody correcting him? He's 29. So I wish you the best of luck in this relationship, because if I was in your shoes, I would have dumped this person like yesterday, because there's no way on earth I would be treated that way. And in my opinion, I think you can do so much better than this immature man who is constantly invalidating your feelings. My boyfriend of almost 5 years just confessed to cheating on me 4 years ago, and I don't know how to feel or what to do. I was spending the night at my boyfriend's house, and we were having drinks and having fun. We began talking about how our relationship used to be when it was just the first couple of years of officially dating. Our relationship used to be very rocky, and definitely not what you would call a healthy relationship. We would fight over the smallest things. I was besties with my ex's boyfriends, and he would spend his free time with other girls. By the way, these girls were ones that he grew up with since elementary school, and went to school with them all the way through high school, so it's not like he would be spending his time with random chicks. Long story short, we had no boundaries in place for each other, and we were pretty toxic and fought a lot. Years later, and now in college, we've matured a ton and have the healthiest and strongest relationship ever. While talking about it, he mentioned how crazy it was that I would spend time with my exes and go out with them while we were together. We laughed about it and joked about how terrible our relationship used to be. I asked him if he had ever done something like that too during that time, which is when he said yeah, but said he'd only tell me if I didn't get worked up over it since it was years ago. I reluctantly agreed. He ended up telling me that one night he was hanging out with my best friend at the time and she didn't have a ride home, so she insisted on spending the night at his house. Also, I'd like to mention that the day they were together, they were in a group of people until everyone left and she stayed behind. Anyways, she insisted on spending the night and that she'd have someone pick her up in the morning. He hesitantly agreed and told her to find somewhere to sleep, like on the couch or something. They never got along really well, so giving up his bed for her wasn't really in mind for him. She refused and jumped onto his bed and kept nudging him to join her. Long story short, he later laid beside her, and while they were talking, she grabbed his hand and she suggested that she wanted to go further than just laying on the bed together, if you know what I mean. When she wanted to go further, he ended up refusing and admitted it was a mistake and that he couldn't do that to me. She also ended up agreeing and said it would be pretty messed up because me and her were really close, as if they didn't already do enough harm as it is. He still cuddled and fell asleep with her that night, and she left in the morning. He also mentioned that she'd always try to be very touchy with him and that she would always joke around with him about wanting to spend some quality time with him, if you know what I mean. Also, I don't want to make this story seem like it's a one-sided issue and like my boyfriend isn't in the wrong here either, because even though he may not have mentioned it, I'm smart enough to acknowledge that she wouldn't feel comfortable enough to act and talk like this if he didn't make her feel like it was okay and that she would be able to do that. Immediately after being told this, I felt humiliated and disappointed more than anything. My friend was best friends with me all throughout high school. She was the friend I would say never backstabbed me or turned fake like a lot of the high school friends that I've had. We had a real bond and I loved her with all of my heart. We simply drifted apart after high school and talk every now and then, but hearing this was tough. In my head, they hated each other and always talked bad about each other to me. I feel lied to and embarrassed. Both my boyfriend and this friend have gone years pretending like nothing happened. What's worse is my boyfriend did this with her and still allowed me to get closer with her over the years. Someone who would easily lie and try to sleep with my boyfriend, even if they didn't end up doing that. And I don't know what to do. Years ago, we were different people, and I don't want to hold this against him, but it's really tough. What am I supposed to say the next time this friend reaches out to me? Should I hold my boyfriend accountable for cheating on me years ago? And while we were different people back then, should I just let it go? Since we are both so different now, what should I do? This is definitely a really messed up situation. Your boyfriend definitely went behind your back and spent time with this lady in a way that is very inappropriate, especially since he is still your boyfriend and was at the time. And bad enough, it's with your best friend. This is definitely something that needs to be addressed with your friend, if anything, just to cut them off. And you said it best. You and your boyfriend have grown up and have become very mature, and it sounds like your relationship now is very, very solid. But back then, things were definitely not as good. So if you did want to make it work, that's kind of where my headspace would be. On the other hand, he definitely was disloyal with you in spending time with this other girl. He went behind your back with your best friend, and I really think you need to remember that. This is absolutely not okay, and it's something that definitely needs to be figured out. So hopefully things work out for you, and hopefully you're able to find some kind of solution, because I can't imagine how frustrating and how heartbreaking it would be to find out that something happened 4 years ago. My fiance is constantly criticizing me, and I don't know what to do. The title says it all. My fiance is constantly criticizing me, and it's driving me bonkers. Everything about me or everything I do is fair game. For background, people usually describe me as a super nice guy with good vibes and always smiling. I'm relatively well liked by most people, and my personality type is really the life of the party, if you know what I mean. I've had several previous long-term relationships and have never felt like this before. I constantly feel like I'm messing things up or doing something wrong. For one, she criticizes my appearance constantly. Don't wear that. It makes you look even shorter than you already are. And this is all over a crew neck t-shirt. She has even asked me to wear lifts around her for photos, despite me telling her that it makes me feel badly, as well as the fact that she doesn't accept me for who I am. And despite all this, she still keeps doing it, criticizing my wardrobe, my style, my hair, basically everything. She is also always mad about everything with the house, and she will yell at me about the most ridiculous things. Why are you standing over there? Move. Or sometimes she'll say, why are you eating over there? The table looks more comfortable. She will literally yell at me about where I choose to stand, sit, which room I'm in, how I eat my food, how I'm cleaning things, etc. As a note, I'm a very clean and neat person and have never ever had anyone critique so many little things like this. She'll put me down in front of her friends or even her family. She'll always make digs at how short I am, about how I'm apparently the worst storyteller, and about how I'm always late to things, to the point where even my own mother called to tell me she noticed it. She constantly asked me for help with no regard as to whether I'm busy or not. Whether it's reviewing her social media posts or a text message from a coworker, as well as picking her outfit out or what to cook, sometimes I'll spend hours at a time simply helping her out. For example, I recently got a new job and went through the interview process for many positions. I left mine and at the same time bought a new house. She didn't once offer to help, and in fact at one point told me, "Shut up about this already," all because I was asking for advice. When I confronted her about this, she seemed sorry and only then tried to listen. She offered no help when I was moving and even sent packages to my new place early and got mad at me when I didn't return her dresses to Amazon fast enough. However, when it came time for her to look for a job, I was actually able to connect her with what ultimately ended up being her position via a friend of mine. And I even helped her compose emails to the recruiters, coached her through the interview, and advised her on how to navigate it. For reference, I work more hours than her, I make 5 times her salary, and have many outside of work responsibilities, but I never once give her pushback. It's always towards me. I'm so lost at this and I really don't know what to do. If my significant other treated me like that, I would not be with them at all. This honestly sounds utterly exhausting. I mean, this lady is absolutely putting you second, if not completely last. This does not sound like a good match to me. There's no respect for you, and she keeps putting you down in front of other people. And it's not like other people are not noticing. Your mom called it out immediately. I would take a good hard look at this relationship because this sounds incredibly toxic. This does not sound like a good relationship, but in all actuality, it sounds like an abusive one. You can do so much better than this, and you can find someone who's not going to put you down at the drop of a hat. You make a lot of money and you have your own house, and it sounds like this lady is absolutely taking advantage of you. She does not help you with anything, but in turn expects you to drop everything just to help her. And that does not sound cohesive or in any way complimentary to both of you. If anything, it seems like she's just using you. So if you do decide to stick with this relationship, which personally I would have been out of there a long time ago, I wish you the best of luck because I don't see this changing anytime soon. I deleted my husband's YouTube channel after it gained about 600,000 subscribers, and now he's so angry he won't talk to me, and I'm not sure what I did wrong. Okay, so hear me out. Ever since I met my husband 6 years ago, he had this YouTube channel. He didn't tell me, and in fact, nobody really knew about it, and it was just his little secret that he found a little embarrassing. I was over at his house, and he had all this equipment, microphones, lighting, everything, and I would ask him why he had so much equipment, and he would tell me that he would use it for gaming, and I found this a little weird. I also found out about this YouTube channel after finding his script on his PC. While he found it really embarrassing that I found out about this, I didn't really think it was a big deal for me. It was just a little weird in my opinion. At the time, he made tutorial videos aimed at people who didn't know how to use technology. So he has this website and following of mostly old people who struggle with basic stuff, and they would send him messages about how to do stuff as requests. He would make a whole video cater towards that request, and it was all for free, and he didn't really make any money off of this. Eventually, I would get really annoyed with his obsession over this channel, and he would reassure me that this was his last video that he was doing. Literally, it was very annoying. We would be out having fun, and he would randomly bring up some tech issue that he could make a video on, and I would be frustrated, like, come on, we're just watching a movie. Another similar situation to this was when we were at a friend's birthday party, and my friends overheard my husband asking me if I just so happen to know how to fix a satellite signal. Obviously, I know nothing about it, but he's asking me, probably just trying to include me in the conversation or something. So my friend overheard him and said, "That's so random, why would you ask that?" He just said, "Oh, it's nothing," and just brushed it off like he normally does. At this point, I got really annoyed, and I did something that I really regret, even though it was in the heat of the moment and I was frustrated. I looked at my friends and I told them about his YouTube channel right there, knowing that he would be embarrassed about other people finding out about his channel because he doesn't like the sound of his voice even though it sounds normal. He immediately got uncomfortable and tried changing the topic, but my friends were already searching his channel and they found it. They started playing a random video and he just walked off, which is what he does when he gets upset. In fact, he was so upset he left immediately, and he said to me, "I can't believe you would do that to me." And after that, he didn't talk to me for the rest of the evening. His videos also became the group joke of my friend's WhatsApp group. Eventually, he started posting new videos, and before the videos would begin, he would shout out the person who asked for help and would display their name and photo, and these people were all so freaking old. It was honestly honestly very embarrassing for me, and this went on for quite a while. Eventually, my friends start asking me all of these questions about what he's doing. They want to know why he's doing it and if he gets paid. And to be honest, I don't know why he does this, and I don't know if he gets paid. I have had this conversation with him a lot, and his response is always, I make the videos to help people that are struggling. I don't do it for money. Yeah, great help making tech videos. After a while, he took a 2-week break or something like that, and said he would be back to his YouTube followers soon. In this time, he started going to the gym, and I was really happy this YouTube phase was finally over, so I did the thing that I thought was necessary. I deleted his channel. The night before, I asked him if he would be upset if he didn't have a YouTube channel, and he said no, and that he's going to delete it soon once he's done helping people. And this is honestly something I've heard over the years. So I just went ahead and did it for him. I deleted it. 2 days later, the weather was amazing, and we, alongside like 15 other friends, went to a restaurant. It was lovely and so refreshing. It was going great. One of my friends then started talking about how she posted a picture and that she got X amount of notifications and all this stuff. My husband then looks to me and says how perfect it is that he can take 2 weeks off and that his followers wouldn't bother him with help requests and that he has 0 notifications. But he starts to get curious as to why he has no notifications. He says maybe his phone logged him out or something. And this is where things blow up. He goes to log in and he has literally no notifications. He thinks maybe his internet has gone bad. And so I reminded him kindly about how I asked him a couple of days ago if he would be upset if his channel disappeared. And that's when he connected the dots that I had deleted his channel. His face dropped. I've never in my 6 years of knowing him seen him like that. Not even when I found his channel. He frantically started typing on his phone, and after a solid minute of typing, he started crying, and I mean actually sobbing crying. He started asking me why I would do that, and it took him so long, and all of his videos are gone. He literally only had 670,000 subscribers, which isn't a lot keeping in mind he posted over 700 videos, and only had 290 million views total. I mean, there are people with millions of subscribers that don't care. The food just arrived and he wasn't listening to me at all. It was a scene and my friends tried calming him down, but it literally just made things worse, and he stormed off in the car, absolutely crying his eyes out. I got a lift back home and I found him on the computer trying to contact YouTube support, crying and sobbing the entire time. He was devastated. He locked the room and didn't come out the entire night. It has been 8 days today and he hasn't spoken to me at all. He isn't even going to work right now either, and is using up the days off that he saved for our holiday at the end of the year. He just sleeps all day and doesn't even look at me or talk to me. I've apologized again and again and again. I deleted his channel so we can start a new chapter in life together. He's still crying even though it's been days now. I told his family about what happened and they came over. I could hear him from the other room crying, telling them how he worked so hard since he was a kid to build that channel up and that it was all my fault. He doesn't eat anything that I make him and he just orders out. His mom has said to give him some space, and his entire family is just annoyed with me and disappointed, but they don't understand what it's like. He's 24 years old making videos to help 70-year-old men on the internet, and it's apparently my fault? How am I supposed to fix this situation? Am I the jerk here? I don't think I have the words to fully articulate how angry this post made me. The fact that she deleted somebody's YouTube channel that they've worked their entire life on, that they pour their heart and soul into, in private mind you, and put so much effort into trying to help people regardless of their age, is just disgusting to me. The original poster in this situation absolutely is the biggest jerk I've ever heard of in my life. The sense of entitlement that you have towards dictating what he can and can't do in his free time is absolutely disgusting and absolutely appalling. I mean, is this lady not self-aware of how self-centered and narcissistic she is? You took this man's one hobby away from him that he was passionate about. It was something outside of work that I guarantee you made him money, and you took it upon yourself to take this away from him. You should absolutely feel ashamed of yourself, and yes, in case you're wondering, this is entirely your fault. And it's bad enough that you and your friends were just making fun of your husband and mocking him behind his back, all because he wanted to make videos to help people. It doesn't matter what the videos were, they were were harmless in nature. They were trying to leave a positive impact on the internet, but you literally took that away from him. And to say that, oh, he only had 290 million views, that's a lot of views. I don't care who you are, especially for an individual channel, and he grossed over 670,000 subscribers. That is not easy. Most people can't even get over 1,000 subscribers, but to have that many people say, yes, I want to watch your stuff, that's a big deal. I feel so bad for the husband in this situation because this is so unfair to them, and I really truly hope he's able to get his YouTube channel back, because I can't imagine having a channel like that taken from me after spending your entire childhood up to your adulthood working on it. The original poster's wife is absolutely a jerk, and this guy can do a lot better than her in my opinion, because this lady sounds like the most self-centered person I've ever heard of in my entire life. But what would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below. If you had a channel that big, would you be upset as well if you lost it all because of your selfish wife? Let us know down below. I am starting to feel very resentful towards my boyfriend because his life is so easy and fun compared to mine, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. I will preface this by saying that I love him so much, and he's great, and this really isn't his fault, but it's really starting to drive a wedge between us, and I'm not sure what to do in this situation. For some context, we've been together for almost 2 years. We live together, we share bills, pretty much everything. I work at a pharmacy as a technician, and I'm also a server on the side. On top of that, I'm a full-time college student with an hour commute each way. I get 0 days off a week and can barely afford to pay my portion of our bills. My boyfriend works from home doing software sales. He makes 3 times the amount that I do. And I'm not just saying this because I'm jealous, but he works maybe 8 hours a week. He even admits he does next to nothing. He sleeps a lot, plays golf several times a week, and hangs out with his friends, again, several times a week until very late. He does pay slightly more when it comes to the bills, and he does cook for us because he enjoys it. I never come home to a clean house. When I get home, he's either napping or with friends, and it's starting to really make me upset. My serving job essentially takes it out of me, and I come home exhausted, mentally and physically, every day. I know it isn't his fault, but I've started getting pretty upset that he constantly gets to have fun, and I have to work my butt off every day with no breaks to pay my part of the bills when he makes so much more than me, and I'm also expected to keep the house clean. I can't exactly ask him to stop having fun, and I also can't ask him to pay more because he has a credit card debt and he's trying to pay it off. And conversations about the housework usually end with him saying it's not fair he should have to do it all when he's the one that pays more of the bills. It really is an unfair balance, and I can't help but be jealous, and I really don't know what to do. I honestly think it's ridiculous that your boyfriend is not doing more chores around the house. Like, he literally needs to step up to the plate and kind of take care of things, especially since you're gone all day and doing all kinds of stuff. I can't really comment on how much he's paying in terms of like rent or bills or anything like that, because I think that's a conversation you two need to have in terms of like how much you both make and maybe him stepping up to the plate more possibly. But when it comes to keeping the house clean, he absolutely needs to step up and do something. His job clearly does not have as much stress as your 2 jobs do have, on top of being a full-time college student. It's an unfair balance, and you know what? He definitely needs to step up. And this is a minor thing, like this is something he should be able to do. Just clean up the house and keep things tidy. You're not asking for a lot. You're not asking for anything groundbreaking. Just clean up after yourself, because you certainly don't have any time. You're a full-time student and you work 2 jobs just to try and stay afloat. So I think an honest conversation about how you feel in this situation and how you're overworked and you feel like garbage when you come home would really go a long way. If your boyfriend cares, he will listen, and he'll get the picture that, hey, I need to step up because my girlfriend is feeling overwhelmed. Hopefully that's the result of that conversation, and hopefully things get easier for you, because at the moment I definitely feel sorry for your situation, and hopefully things improve. My ex's close friend keeps trying to hook up with me, and I really don't know what to do about it. First off, I'd like to say that I do have a drinking problem. I've been trying to get sober for months. I'm currently on day 35 without a drink, and I've fallen off the wagon a few times, but this is the longest I've ever gone. I lost the love of my life to addiction. What I mean by this is that I was planning on marrying this woman. I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. It's been over a year since I left her, and I am still crazy in love with her, but my drinking caused me to be a complete jerk to her. I lied to her, I was verbally aggressive, I accused her of things that she didn't do, I spread rumors about her. I don't know why I did any of this. I'm not trying to justify my actions at all. I'm just being honest. The worst thing I did, though, by far, was try to sleep sleep with 2 close friends of hers while I was still with her. Both of these instances happened when I was really under the influence, and it's something I feel awful about to the grave. Looking back, I actually wonder if I chose friends of hers that were unavailable to me on purpose. At the time, it really was more about wanting to hurt her as much as possible, instead of wanting to actually be with either of these people. Why did I want to hurt her so much? Because she is the first person to call me out on my addiction and to not enable me. At the time, I was livid with her for that, and really, all she ever wanted was what was best for us. I have done everything I can to better myself. I'm in therapy, I'm not drinking anymore, I am trying to confront all of my issues. Here's where the problems start to arise though. Lately, one of her female friends keeps messaging me and wanting to hook up. This woman is so beyond nasty, both as a person and physically. I mean, her teeth are rotten, she has really bad hygiene, she has the ugliest tattoos all over herself, and she likes messing with married men. I remember when I was with my ex, I would question why she was friends with this woman, and she said they were both part of a big group of friends years ago, and that group all pretty much split up and moved away. This woman keeps messaging me and asking me to meet up with her. She keeps saying,
"Well, now that your ex and I aren't on good terms, we can be together."
I don't want to be with her. She's disgusting and she's a heavy drinker, and I'm trying to avoid people like that. I keep telling her no, but she keeps persisting. I blocked her number, and then she started texting me from a new number. And right now, she is the only link I have to my ex. My ex has blocked me everywhere. For a while, this friend of hers would message me and tell me everything my ex was up to. I didn't even have to ask her. She was just a gossip. I actually liked hearing what is going on in my ex's life though. I like knowing that she is bettering herself and taking care of herself. But now she messages me and keeps throwing it in my face that once I got drunk and started to hit on her. I don't really feel like I have much of a leg to stand on, and I am worried that if my ex finds out that I am even talking to her, that it will just simply look bad. One day, my goal is to be stable again, enough for my ex to see that I've changed, and that one day, hopefully, we could get married. I have never been in this situation before. I know I can just tell her no and tell her to leave me alone, but it just doesn't seem to be working. What should I do? You need to put your foot down and say no, absolutely not, I don't want you in my life, and then keep blocking her. If you keep entertaining whatever this lady's saying, she will keep coming back. And that is just not gonna work. You can't allow her back in your life. Block her every single time. Also, I think you need to understand where your ex is coming from. You treated her like garbage for years. She has no obligation to come back to you. You were abusive, you were neglectful, you were manipulative. I don't blame her for blocking you on everything and saying you are not gonna be in my life. And I think based on your past behavior, you need to respect that because she deserves to be happy just like you do. And it's great that you're working on yourself and you're trying to be better, but she's under no obligation to try and come back to you and potentially enter into another abusive relationship. So for me, it seems a little bit creepy that you're like, oh, one day we're gonna get married and we're gonna be together. No, that idea needs to get thrown out the window. If you care about her, you'll leave her alone. Because in my opinion, she deserves somebody who's gonna treat her nice from the start and not someone who's gonna come back after years of abuse with these unrealistic, grandiose plans of potentially getting married. My boyfriend is making me choose between him and my family, and I don't know what to do. Long story short, I met my boyfriend 3 years ago. After knowing each other for a while, we started dating. However, he had moved back to the state where he's stationed, as he works in the army. Due to long distance, we ended up breaking up, but staying as friends. I visited him a couple of times, and he visited me as well. But this is where things start to get really complicated. Yes, we were officially done, but the way we were talking to each other, as well as visiting each other, was more than just a friend. When I visited him in the summer, I found out that he was lying about his ex, as well as his other relationships. It hurt me so much, but what hurt me more was to lose him. Because of this, I continued to stay in his life, even though it gave me a major trust issue and severe anxiety. In my head, I knew I deserved way better, but still, he was my best friend and the person I loved. Months passed by, and now he is ready to take things more seriously. We talked about being official and moving in together. When this conversation was brought up, I was still in school finishing up my degree. Hence, it wasn't practical for me to move to a different state when I'm almost done with my schooling. Then, I found a really good job in the state I'm living in. Due to the situation that I'm currently in, it was challenging to move and apply for jobs in the state he's living in. Because of all these reasons, he decided to move to the state that I'm in, where we eventually found an apartment where I live. Here is where another problem came in. I am a guardian of my little sister who is still a minor. My parents are currently in another country, and I have been staying with my relatives. Since we only have one bedroom, I had to arrange my living situation with my relatives so my sister can stay with them while I'm at work. I work 12 hours each day, so it's hard for me to take care of her when I'm still at work. It's been hard to make this arrangement, and my boyfriend has been mad at me for not moving in with him already. He traveled really far to move to this state, and I understand that he feels lonely and wants me to be there, but what he is asking me is like abandoning my sister, which I simply can't do. Now he wants to go back to the state he's from and wants me to quit my job, leave my family, and move with him. He said we can go our separate ways this time if I don't want to move to the other state with him. If I were to do so, I would have no job, no family, and I obviously love him and I've been wanting to build a life together, but I'm not sure if this is the right way to do so. Maybe I should have never agreed to move in with him and never stayed after finding out about his lies. I can never abandon my sister, but I also don't want to lose him. What should I do? The fact that your boyfriend is not being willing to understand your situation involving your sister is a big red flag. I mean, he's making you choose between your family or him. And in my opinion, if I was in your situation, I would pick my family every time. There's no way I'm gonna give up on my family who's been with me my entire life just to spend a life with someone who, by the way, I just found out has been lying to me. Whenever you're given an ultimatum towards your actions as well as what you should do with your life, that's when you need to take a step back and be like, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here? Because it sounds like this guy's trying to isolate you from the rest of your family, which really goes to show me that he's probably not as good as you think he is. From what you've described, this man is really dishonest, he's selfish, and he's trying to manipulate you and trying to control your life. Your sister needs your help, and there's no way you could just kick her aside and have your relatives take care of it. That's not how this works. And to put it frankly, you better believe your sister's gonna remember if you abandon her right about now. Her parents, as well as yours, are overseas in another country, and they're trusting you to take care of her. So to just give up on her like that would be a huge breach of trust, which will be incredibly long-lasting and not go away. So for me, the choice is easy. I would not bend to any type of ultimatum like this, and I would choose my family first no matter what. An entitled Karen starts changing her kid's diaper in the middle of a restaurant, and everyone around her is just absolutely appalled. But I refuse to deal with this type of entitlement, so I put her in her place. So this happened when I went to have lunch with my parents. We went to the usual place, which is a lovely pizzeria with a huge terrace. We sat down, ordered some food, and enjoyed some chatting while sipping drinks. We immediately noticed a table of about 6 women, the entitled party with the entitled Karen. They were loud, obnoxious, and absolutely didn't consider other visitors of this establishment. They had 4 kids and 1 infant with them. I remember that only 1 out of the 4 kids was sitting down quietly enjoying their ice cream. The other 3 were little hellspawn running amok around the tables. The moms were laughing and enjoying themselves, while my patience was dropping to 0 pretty quick. After the kids chose our table to run around, I sternly told them to stop that and to go back to their own table. The entitled Karens at their table shot daggers in my direction, but didn't say anything directly to me. They just called their kids and told them to go play in the kids' corner. It took about a minute and the kids were back, and that was also the time when our food came in. They almost caused the waitress to drop a plate as she stumbled over one of them. Luckily, she managed to make it without any kind of disaster. The waitress then went to the table and asked if they would mind their children, to which the mothers played it down like it was no big deal. They just said,
"They're just children just playing."
Apparently, they didn't realize that a restaurant is not a playground. But this wasn't even the worst of it. They also didn't realize that a restaurant is not a toilet. So you can imagine my disgusted surprise when this entitled Karen takes her infant out of the stroller and begins to change her child's diaper right then and there on the dining table in the middle of the restaurant. We have already finished our meal, thankfully, but I was upset regardless. I was not quite sure what was going through this entitled Karen's head, but apparently her 2 brain cells were too busy trying to fight each other in the empty space, so nothing useful came out of there. Once she was done with changing the kid, she just casually put the poopy diaper on the corner of the table. She packed it into a small package, but didn't put it in a bag or anything. She just expected the waitress to just pick it up and throw it away for her. And the final straw to this disgusting display from these entitled Karens was that nobody washed or sanitized their hands after changing this kid's poopy diaper. And by this point, I was fed up. I very loudly said that they are disgusting pieces of garbage and that perhaps at home they would find it normal to put poopy diapers on their dining table, but in a modern society, however, that's not a thing. I then demanded that these people start behaving like people and not like animals, where they're putting their poop exactly where they eat. When the waitress saw this, she was also incredibly upset. What's even worse is that this entitled Karen wasn't even actually aggressive, but she was just completely oblivious to things around her. She was completely dismissive and perhaps not even capable of understanding that every single customer around her was angry about her brats running around the tables, as well as her putting poopy diapers on the table. After that encounter, I never really came back to that restaurant and really did start to dislike it after a while, because I'm not fond of having someone's poopy diapers on the table while I'm trying to eat. What kind of parent would do that? Like, if your kid needs to be changed, then you need to go to the bathroom to do that. There's quite literally a station available where you can change your kid and get things taken care of. But I can't imagine witnessing that inside of a restaurant and still having any kind of appetite or even wanting to come back. That entitled Karen literally put a poopy diaper on the table and expected the waitress to take care of it. That is absolutely disgusting. So good for you for speaking up, and I don't really blame you for not going back, because if I was in your shoes and I witnessed something so disgusting like that, I probably would not go back to that restaurant either. I just found out that my boyfriend went on a 7-day vacation with his ex last year, and he never told me, and I really don't know how to make sense of any of this or what to do. In 2021, I moved from California to New Jersey for school. My boyfriend and I met on a dating site in July, and we hit it off instantly. He just got out of a 4-year relationship in February, and my relationship of just under 2 years ended in March. My ex and I were still friends when we broke up, and we even made plans for him to come visit me in September from another state. At the time, I wasn't really looking for a relationship and made it clear to him during our first couple of dates. He knew that my ex was visiting and was aware I was talking to other guys besides him. We clicked so well. We started hanging out almost every other day since the day we met, and he slept over at my apartment after every date. We quickly developed feelings for each other, and I found myself losing interest in just about everyone else. After about 2 weeks, he expressed wanting to be exclusive, but didn't want to rush me, and that he had to stop talking to other girls a while ago. He also started getting mad and hating the idea of me still talking to other people and having my ex visiting me in September. He told me about an upcoming annual family vacation that he goes on every year in August. It lasts for 1 week, and he said he didn't want to lose me while he was away. He also jokingly asked if I wanted to come along, and he asked this a few times leading up to the vacation. The night before the vacation, we cuddled in bed and poured our hearts out to each other. We had been unofficially exclusive for about a month. I told him I canceled on my ex and that he wasn't coming in September anymore, and my boyfriend was so happy when he heard that. When he got back from vacation, he practically moved in with me. We lived together for 10 months and fell deeply in love. He said he's never met anyone he felt so strongly connected to. He asked me recently to come on this vacation trip this year with his family, and I agreed. We talked about the future and made plans together. He drove up to his parents for Thanksgiving and Easter's in North Carolina. I went to his relatives' parties and met his distant family, uncles, cousins, everybody. He even met my parents at my graduation in May. When my lease was over in June, I had planned to go back to California, and he would move back to North Carolina. He begged me to come live with him in North Carolina, but we ultimately agreed to do long distance for a year, visiting each other every couple of months, and that he would be moving to California after that year. After just 1 month apart, I flew to North Carolina to surprise him for our 1-year anniversary. I ended up staying there for a month and went on the vacation with his entire family in August. I just got back to California a few days ago and saw an Instagram post from his brother's girlfriend of last year's vacation, and he is laying next to his ex-girlfriend in the Caribbean. I was in complete disbelief. I had no doubt in my mind that it must have been a re-upload from a couple of years ago, but after asking him about it, he admitted to me that he was stuck bringing her because his parents had already bought her the tickets and the trip was already paid for. He said they fought the entire time and he wasn't even hanging out with her. He knew he had to tell me this eventually, and it is what he was afraid of the entire time. I just burst into tears. I feel such immense betrayal. I feel deceived and I feel hurt. I'm reminiscing on the timeline and what we've got going on between us. And I just couldn't understand how he was able to keep this away from me for so long after everything we've been through. When was he going to tell me? Was he even ever going to tell me? We were already so closely connected when he left for the vacation. We confessed feelings to each other. I even canceled my ex's visit. He said I miss you when he was away. I've been ignoring his calls and text messages for a couple of days now. I want to take some time to really process everything. I've cried so much I couldn't make up my mind if I should walk away or give him another chance. I fear that if I stay, things would never be the same anymore. I would be in constant doubt about everything. It sucks so bad because he's the first guy I thought as someone I could be married to. I feel like the future I've imagined just changed right before my eyes. I'm an emotional mess right now, and I don't want my crass feelings to dictate the outcome of the decision I'm making. What should I do? This is a tough one because he definitely lied to you, but I think the details here really do make a difference. And I really would trust your boyfriend when he says, hey, I had no choice, she was coming no matter what, and I didn't even want to spend time with her. But in that same vein of thought, he was sitting there laying next to his ex-girlfriend, and he didn't tell you about this for over a year. If he really wanted to be loyal, like he was saying at the beginning of the relationship, he should have said something much sooner, like as soon as it was happening. If not that, as soon as he found out she was still coming, because it's truly not fair for you to have to find out this way. It definitely will leave a bad taste in your mouth, and I can completely understand where you're coming from. So I think if anything, there's definitely going to be a conversation about this between the two of you. I think if he really does love you, he'll do whatever he can to make it so you can trust him again, because obviously you do love him, and it would be terrible for this to be the end of your relationship. My close friends left me out of our yearly summer getaway without telling me, and now I'm questioning if these people are even my friends to begin with. I exist within a group of 5 very close friends. We're all 26 years old. We've been friends since kindergarten. Most nights growing up were spent at my mother's house with them. Though I personally grew up very poor, they would all still be welcome for dinner any night they needed to, or if they just wanted to stay over, which was often more than once a week, and we always had extra space for them to sleep over. We generally all take some time off of work in the summer to go up to a cottage owned by one of my friend's father. This summer was planned to be no different. Starting in May, we had made plans to go sometime in August. I have been asking in our group chat for a little over a month now when exactly we are going to leave, and every time it came up, I was completely ignored, which was very jarring. About a week ago, they all started posting Instagram stories, and they had very clearly been already at that cottage for a couple of days, and they continued to post daily for another week. The group chat had been silent for about 2 days before they left, so they obviously coordinated this without me. I wound up asking something along the lines of, I just want to know if I pissed anyone off. I have no idea what could have happened for me not to even be included in this. And the message has been seen by everyone in the group and went a while without any kind of response. After about 3 or 4 hours, the message received from one of the group members said, I just didn't feel like paying for your beer and groceries for a week. I was shocked by this statement because this has never been the case. In fact, I always bring my own food because I have a stomach condition that makes me very sick if I live off of hot dogs and hamburgers for more than a day or so at a time. So I only eat anything that they bring if they absolutely insist. I also very specifically don't enjoy drinking beer and only accept it if it's explicitly offered to me. I always bring my own beverages of choice, and my snacks are always shared amongst the others. For example, everyone winds up eating my cheese slices that I bring for sandwiches on their burgers, which I don't mind whatsoever. I called him out saying that I always bring my own stuff, and the answer was, you always end up eating our stuff anyways, which is blatantly false. I don't eat anybody else's food unless they tell me to do it, and I always hesitate in accepting it because it makes me feel anxious, and rightfully so. Everyone in the group saw this, and nothing was said, which makes me feel as if they all feel the exact same way. I'm feeling heartbroken about all of this. I've always been treated differently because of how poor I was growing up. I was homeless on my own when I was 15 years old, and it took a really long time to get where I am now. There have been offhanded remarks in the past from one of the friends, basically implying that they always pay for me and that they actually have to work for their money, referring to me being, of course, on social assistance when I was younger, in order to, not starve to death, and to be able to simply pay my rent. I feel like everyone still sees me like a charity case. It is almost impossible to break the stigma that I somehow somehow expect things to be given to me for free, which has never been the case. In fact, I absolutely hate accepting things from anybody. Either way, I left the group chat and all other chats that we happen to be in together. One of the members added me back a couple of times, and I expressly requested that I not be added back. I have felt horrible ever since this happened, and I really don't know what to do here. I feel like I can't just shrug this one off, like everything else that's happened. I absolutely hate that I'm seen as a liability like that. Even if it was the case that they would have needed to pitch in for food for a week, I am the only person in the group they would have had a problem doing so for. More and more over the years, it's been seeming like we're only still friends because it's been that way forever. That's my perspective, at least. Should I make it apparent how I feel about the whole thing and move on? Should I try to salvage something? I cannot see myself feeling welcomed ever again. What should I do? I would kick these people to the curb and never look back. There is no way I would personally put up with that type of disrespect. They've made their decision. They don't like you and they don't want you in their group. In fact, they don't like you so much that they coordinated behind your back to avoid you being a part of this group trip that you've been doing forever. I seriously just would not waste my time with them ever again. They are terrible people, and they weren't even man enough to tell you that they did not want you in the group anymore. They went behind your back like a scared little child and did all of this without you. And they did this expressly with the fact that they knew it would get back to you. They don't view you as an equal, they see you as someone who's underneath them, and to be honest, these people are not your friends. They are absolute pieces of garbage, and you definitely can find people who actually care. Because these people don't, plain and simple. And when you asked them why they did this, they could not come up with a real reason why they did not want you in their group anymore. They tried to say, oh, I don't want to pay for your groceries. They'll look for any kind of same old argument to try and rationalize why they won't like you, which in all honesty is just not even real. They turn their back on you, and you do not need that in your life. So hold your head high and move forward with your life. You do not need these people, and you will be so much better off without them. My girlfriend is overwhelmed by new changes in her life, and as a result, she wants to take a break from our relationship, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 8 months now. We have very similar views on the world, similar personalities, and we complement each other amazingly, and overall we love and accept one another. We often say that it's kind of strange that we met each other since we never expected to find someone with who we had such a great time and feel completely whole with. I moved to another city away for school, and she had to move back to her hometown for family issues. It was about 4 hours away by car from my university. As we are starting a long-distance relationship, she is also confronted with several challenges. The situation with her parents is not ideal, and she is looking for a job. She is a doctor, and so am I, and she has a bunch of licensing exams to do. All of this to say, she is going through a lot of stress at the same time. For the past 2 weeks, the relationship has been rocky, and last week she dropped the news that she wanted some space. Since I love her dearly, I agreed and I understood, especially after the long conversation that we had. We didn't speak for 5 days, and we had already planned that I would go visit her this weekend. When I saw her yesterday, she had a hard time vocalizing what she wanted to say, and knowing her like the back of my hand, I asked her if she wanted to break off our relationship. She started crying and said that it is hard for her right now since she has so many other things going on, and she feels like she cannot focus on herself and her work since she is overwhelmed. She said that she feels like the relationship is one-sided since I am putting a lot of effort into seeing her and supporting her while she is currently unavailable emotionally for me. Just as an FYI, I really understand and haven't been bothered by it since I know what she's going through in her situation right now, and I'm very compassionate towards everything. She feels like she is wasting my time and feels like it's unfair. So at this point, I tried to explain to her that I am a grown man and that I can make decisions for myself, and that I go to see her because I love her. But what is important is that she is happy, and she said that she is the happiest she can ever be when she is with me. But once I am not around, she feels anxious and is stressed about all the things she has to do. We still ended up being together for the past 2 days, and she was holding my hand and holding me close to her. We didn't sleep that night and spoke for hours about family and the future. But this morning, it felt like she was scared to see me go again, and I could see it in her eyes that she needs this break. I feel very powerless regarding this situation, all because I am so far away from her. I really love her, and I'm scared to lose her, but I feel like I have to give her the space that she needs, and maybe rekindle our situation in like 1 or 2 months' time, once her situation becomes more stable, especially in the career aspect of things. The other side of me wants to fight for it in a selfish way. I am torn since she truly is the most amazing person I've ever met. What should I do? It sounds like you really care about your girlfriend, which is really good, and you guys obviously want to make this work, but the situation that she's in and all the hard things that she's currently trying to get through is making it impossible for you guys to be together. So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to listen to your partner and do what she says in this moment. She clearly wants to take a break to try and get things figured out and then come back to the relationship when she's ready. She's going through a lot. She's got issues with her family and her career. That's a lot for anybody to take on. And while I totally understand you have that inclination that you want to fight for this and you want to make this work no matter what, even if it's long distance, I think you really should consider her perspective and say, okay, let's come back in 1 or 2 months and see where we're at. I've been in situations like that where family stress or a loved one who's on the verge of passing away or career problems are causing a lot of problems in my life. And being in a relationship with all these things going on can bring you down and can be a big stressor in your life. So it's understandable that she would want to take a break. So that's my opinion. I think taking a break and allowing her time to get her life together really would do good for her as well as you. But I think if anything, leave the ball in her court and let her know that she can always reach back out and keep things going, because maybe this relationship will prove the test of time. But there's also a chance that this is probably the end of your relationship. So that's also something you need to consider. But whatever you decide to do, I hope it really does work out, and hopefully you guys are still able to have some kind of a relationship and keep each other close, even if that means right now or later down the line. My mom is making me feel bad about the honeymoon my fiance and I just booked, and I really don't know how to handle this situation or what to do. So my fiance and I are getting married next summer. We've been dating for a year and engaged for about 2 months. We agreed to a low-key honeymoon because I'm still in grad school and I don't have much time to take off in the first place. But once I graduate, we'll be taking a much longer trip internationally. We booked a honeymoon at an all-inclusive resort in Florida just a couple of days ago. It seemed really promising from the website and it had really good reviews. We could also get a discount for booking it this month, so we signed up and made the purchase. My fiance is solely paying for it because I have no money since I'm just a student. So I called my mom today and I updated her on what our plans were and where we were going for our honeymoon. I expected her to be excited, but instead she starts questioning why we would choose Florida and accusing my fiance of pressuring me to go somewhere cheaper when she knows for a fact he can afford more. As a side note, my fiance does make quite a lot of money, so it really is not an issue in this regard. She starts asking me if it was the place that I always imagined I would be going, and saying that I only get one honeymoon, so it should be good. My mom and dad went on a small Caribbean island for theirs. Also, my parents had well over a week to enjoy their honeymoon, whereas because of my schooling, I'll be lucky to get 1 week at all. I can't really talk to anyone about it, and I don't want to talk to my fiance about it because I don't want him to feel guilty about making this purchase and putting this money down for something that we need to question. I mean, we already made a payment on this. He has a very big heart, and I know that it will crush him if I talk to him about it, but it's eating me up inside. I don't know how to think about it, but is Florida really that bad of an option? Should I try to get my fiance to get us to go to a honeymoon somewhere else, all because my mom is complaining about it? What should I do? I think this is a really terrible thing that your mom has done. She's literally getting in your head to try and stop you from going to Florida, as if she has any say in what you can and can't do for your honeymoon. Fun fact, she is not going to be there. She's not going to be involved in your marriage. It's going to be you and your fiance. So if you guys want to go to Florida, then go to Florida. There's a lot of options there for fun things to do, and it is definitely not a lesser location to go and have some fun and be with your future husband after you get married. You're going to have a good time. I know there's all these terrible stories that come out about Florida man and all that stuff, but in all actuality, as someone who has lived there, it's not nearly as bad as you think, especially if you're going to be at a resort of some kind, enjoying your life in the sun. And it sounds like you two were excited about this until your mom chimed in with her ugly opinion. I just personally would not let her get inside your head and make you second guess something you've already paid for. So plan on going to Florida when you get married, and don't think twice about it, because your mom has no say in your marriage, and chances are you get there and you're probably going to have the time of your life. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.